when Jesse Jackson Jr. was in Congress, a group of young folks came to him. Man, if you don't do this, and we gonna vote you out. Jesse Jr. said, y'all ain't gonna do a damn thing.
Yeah.
He said, you see that building right there? That's a high rise. He said, in that high rise are old people, and they mostly women. That's what I'm talking to. It's gonna be them seasoned saints.
Every time. Faithful. They faithful.
They gonna show up.
They gonna show up.
So when you like, hey, I need backup.
That's right.
You know it's gonna be 50, 60, 70 of them.
That's gonna show
with
up.
They gray hair.
That's exactly
and
right.
And walkers, and they like, Justin, baby, we here.
We hear what you need us to do.
We need all of you to stay active and engaged in order to defeat Donald Trump and elect Vice President Harris. Before we get into the program, I wanted to make a quick pitch for the Vice President's merch store, store.kamalaharris.com, where exclusively for all of you, we are announcing 20% off if you use the discount code ORGANIZE.
Doesn't that make you gay?
We are focused on rebuilding our winning coalition of voters, and we are not taking any votes for granted. In particular, there are several key constituencies in the Democratic base with whom Vice President Harris has well-documented support. Black voters, Latino voters, AA and HPI voters, women, and young voters. We know that each of these core voter groups care about issues like reproductive rights, upholding the rule of law, and Donald Trump's criminal convictions. And these issues are exactly where Vice President Kamala Harris has been leading the charge for her entire career. They are also undecided voters who we are ready to persuade. And these voters are disproportionately Black, Latino, and under the age of 30. They are more likely to have supported the Biden-Harris ticket in 2020, and they are 2 times more likely to be Democrats than Republicans. So it's this campaign's job to win these voters, and we know that we can.
I don't have to tell folks in Atlanta that generations of Americans before us led the fight for freedom. And now the baton is in our hands.
Okay, so first let me say I'm so happy to see a woman brought up for president, and I'm grateful for that. However, they get the black vote and nothing changes. And when I say nothing, I mean our education system. Our children are suffering in New York City public schools. And I understand that they allow the migrants to come in, but they come in and they just overwhelm them with services. And they forget about the people that are already here. So is something going to change because Kamala's running instead of Biden? Like, help me out. We're confused here.
Well, those are all valid questions. A lot of those things you named are local issues, though.
Yeah.
Like, that's stuff you should be going to your local government with.
Yeah.
I don't think America's ready. I don't think America's ready for a female president. You know what? I'm a black man, and I absolutely do not want another Democratic president in there. I think we should give the Republicans another try. There's a lot of agendas that the Democratic Party has kind of put into place that I don't support. I think they're destroying the black man. They're destroying the black family.
Not ready. You just get ready. Like, what you talking about? She know what she up against. Like, you just get ready. I don't understand. Like, she not ready. How y'all gonna tell somebody not ready?
And that's another good point just brought up. Donald Trump had no political experience whatsoever.
Not one.
None.
Nothing at all.
So this woman has been a senator, attorney general, a vice president. She seemed ready to me.
You all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
Being an HBCU alum and D9 member, we've already seen that push and that call for all of us to rally behind her. I do feel like the symbolism of the moment does urge us a little bit more, even without hearing the platform, to be behind her.
The fact that she graduated from an HBCU, the fact that she was a prosecutor, the fact that she's not going to back down, the fact that she's not scared, the fact that she looks like all of us out there to me.
Well, I think the prosecutor thing plays well for her right now. You know, when she ran for president in 2020, that was something that people, used against her. But I mean, when you going up against somebody who's got all the criminal charges that Donald Trump has, I don't think that there's a better person to prosecute the case against Trump than, a former prosecutor, like the vice president.
If y'all don't know me, I go by the name of Quavo. Born and raised in the north side of Atlanta, home of the Migos. So it's only right in the birthplace of the culture to launch the first African-American woman to run for president. Yeah, we changing the culture again. So if you never voted before, make sure you get out and vote right now, because it's the real one.
Donald Trump has been talking a big game about securing our border, but he does not walk the walk. Or as my friend Quavo would say, he does not walk it like he talks it.
Kamala has too much class. She's not going to stoop to his level, and his level is pretty low. I do think that he may or may not show up for a debate. She'll wipe the floor up with him, and that's why he doesn't want to come.
Donald, as the saying goes, if you've got something to say, say it to my face, say it to my face, say it to my face. Across our nation, we are witnessing a full-on assault on hard-fought, hard-won freedoms and rights. Freedom to vote, freedom to be safe from gun violence, freedom to live without fear of bigotry and hate, freedom to love who you love openly and with pride, freedom to learn and acknowledge our true and full history, freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body. Ours is a fight for the future and for freedom.
She's a woman and she can speak directly to the issues that are up against us in this whole race.
On day one, I will take on price gouging and bring down costs. We will take on landlords and cap unfair rent increases. We will take on big pharma to cap prescription drug costs for all Americans.
There was a moment last night on the White Women Call that was quite interesting. One of them said, Black women know how to organize and mobilize, so we should let them lead. They're 6% of the population and have a more dramatic effect than we do, and we're 47%.
Lord have mercy. Did she tell the truth? And in this moment, we all need to be following this Black woman to the White House. And it's not without, and I know for white folk, y'all got to put something at risk. Black people put things at risk all the time.
Donald Trump has a different plan in mind, one that would raise prices on middle-class families. Just look at his Project 2025 agenda. I take it you've seen it.
Far-right manifesto Project 2025 is a 1,000-page manifesto that outlines a radical agenda to increase the powers of the executive branch.
Anybody that gets a government check needs to be extremely concerned about what's going on here.
Whether it is housing or transportation or food or jobs or civil rights, all of these things will be radically changed, radically weakened, that will have impacts inside of your life.
Freedoms are been taken away from us. Wake up, do the research, look up 2025 agenda.
Project 2025 is a plan to weaken the middle class.
Diminish rights for LGBTQ individuals, immigrants, women, people of color, dismantling key government agencies.
It is a 1,000-page bucket list of extremist policies that would uproot every government agency and disrupt the lives of every person who calls this country home.
This is a direct aim at Black people. They want to raise the retirement age.
And I didn't even touch upon proposals for housing, climate change, worker protections, and more.
The fuck is the black jobs? See, he has that little Project 2025. I think I know what black jobs he's talking about. He wants a certain type of black jobs to come back. He trying to get us back to slavery.
The Department of Education would be eliminated, cutting students off from civil rights protections and ending essential Title I funding for K through 12 schools.
They want to end free lunch. They want to end free lunch.
The federal government is one of the largest employers of people of color. So they're going to move many of these people out and bring in their own folks.
They want to ban Black and Latino studies from all public universities.
Project 25 not only calls for national book bans in schools, but also creates a list of banned words for the federal government that would be deleted from, quote, every federal rule, agency regulation, contract, grant, and piece of legislation that exists. Here are just a few of the words on the list: diversity, gender, reproductive health, and of course, conservatives want to ban the word abortion. Project 2025 would destroy the federal government as we know it.
But I want to tell you about God's Project 25. God's Project 25 is Psalm 25. In you, Lord my God, I put my trust. I trust in you. Don't let me be put to shame. Let my enemies have no triumph over me. Let shame come on all of those who are treacherous toward your children.
A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals. You have told 4 congresswomen of color to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. Why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner, a first question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
Give me a
literally
definition
the words
then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition of
Sir,
that.
I'm asking you a question,
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct
define
question.
it. Define it for me, if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say, no, I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
Why come here? What is your message today?
Coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a black job, sir?
A black job is anybody that has a job. That's what it is. Anybody that has a job.
All right.
And
Mr. President,
they're taking the employment away from black people. They're coming in, they're invading. It's an invasion of millions of people, probably 15, 16, 17 million people. I have a feeling it's much more than that. And everybody's been seeing what's happened. The black population is affected most by that.
So Sonia Massey, someone from Illinois, an unarmed black woman, was shot the other day in her home by a deputy sheriff. The deputy has since been charged with murder. You've said police would get immunity from prosecution if you win.
But I'm saying if I felt, or if a group of people would feel that somebody was being unfairly prosecuted because the person did a good job maybe with crime or made a mistake, an innocent mistake. There's a big difference between being a bad person and making an innocent mistake. But if somebody made an innocent mistake, I would want to help that person.
What would those exceptions be? What would determine
you
an
go
innocent
after
mistake?
somebody and it's a very close call and it's very dangerous, and they have the policeman's life is a very difficult thing because sometimes you have less than a second to make a life and death decision, and sometimes very bad decisions are made. They're not made from an evil standpoint, but they're made from the standpoint of they made a mistake.
I find it interesting because you do talk about reining in prosecutors, especially when it comes to prosecutors that are prosecuting you. Why doesn't that skepticism apply to law enforcement?
Well, I've been prosecuted because I'm a political opponent of two people that have weaponized our justice system. This is an attack on a political opponent.
I'm going to get my J.D. Vance question in. He, has a lot of opinions about childless women like myself or divorced people like yourself. Do you think the Republican Party is getting a little bit too judgy about people's lives when you think about abortion or when you think about what J.D. Vance is saying?
I don't think, look, I think that the Democrat Party is really the one that has the problem. I think they're radical on abortion because they're allowing abortion in the 9th month. They're allowing the death. They're allowing the death of a baby after the baby is born, and I think the Republican Party is actually much less. I think I've made them much less radical, perhaps.
What do you do on day one if you win? What's your first thing?
I do two things because I can do a lot of things simultaneously. I close the border. We don't want people coming in. We want people to come in, Harris, but they have to be vetted. They have to be checked. They have to come in legally. We want
Legal,
people. I want
yeah.
people to come into our country, but they have to be vetted. They have to be checked. So when you say, what do? That, and I drill, baby, drill. I bring energy way down. I bring interest rates down. I bring inflation way down so that people can go to a restaurant and afford it. Because right now, people can't buy food. Your grocery bills are up 40, 50, 60%, right? She's agreeing to me. Oh, she's agreeing. Thank you. I like you very much. But it's true. Your grocery bills are up. And then they're mandating that you buy an all-electric car. You know, Elon Musk endorsed me, and he's a friend of mine. He's a good guy. He's a smart guy. But I'm against everybody having an electric car, okay? I'm very much against that. You have to be able to, if you want a hybrid or if you want a gasoline-propelled car. But, you know, we have more liquid gold, gasoline, oil, under our feet than any other country. More than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia, more than any other country. I want to use it. I want to use what we have. I want to bring down prices, bring down costs, and I also have to stop the invasion. And remember, they're taking your jobs. These people coming in are taking your jobs.
Project 2020.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Culture. I am one of your hosts, Quisha King. We have a full evening tonight, a lot of things to get to. I'll make my intro brief. We have Black people, Black vote, Black lives, Black wealth, Black excellence, Black girl magic, Black boy joy, Black business, Black moms, Black community, Black struggle, Black family, Black women, Black men, Black History Month, Black Heritage Month, and yes, Black jobs. So to further expound on this and many, many more topics, let me go to our esteemed intellectual of the group, Mr. Chuck Littleton. Hello, Chuck. How are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm good. Oh my gosh, there's so many things. Like the montage is just full of so many good things. Project 2025 is what we're talking about tonight. I have not read the entire 900 and however many pages. I have seen the summary. But I don't really find anything on it to be too crazy. I mean, I'm not seeing what all the fear mongering is about. What about you?
I'm not either. And you said you haven't read it, the full 900 pages, 1,000 pages, however long it is. And I can assure you that neither has Taraji P. Henson and Charlemagne the Fraud and the rest of them. I can guarantee they haven't either. But I have watched some other, political commentators give like a shorthand synopsis of it. And, these were pretty left-wing sources. And, the things that I heard, I'm like, oh, okay. Didn't sound like anything too beyond the pale, in my humble opinion. But of course, considering the fact that, the full brunt and weight of the activist media, their sycophants and their acolytes and entertainment and, academia and elsewhere, the full-on blitzkrieg has really poisoned the well, so to speak. And, you have heard Trump distancing himself from this Project 2025. I mean, he didn't have anything to do with it from the get-go.
Right.
And he has made that clear continuously, but just like he has continuously made other things clear over years, in fact, that many of people still believe are true. Of course, he's just simply going to be drowned out. But I guess we can get into the meat and potatoes of what Project 2025 actually is. Because again, like you mentioned, Keisha, it isn't some, I'm calling it a manifesto and these sorts of things. You have all sorts of liberal left-wing think tanks who have sway, if you will, over policy measures and procedures of the Democrat Party. But what was it, Roland Martin, who referred to it as a far right or ultra right or uber right. Right there's always a far right, an alt right, or an extreme right, but there is no extreme left. There is no alt left. I don't know. Is there an alt left, a far left? Of course, this is just. I mean, this is meant to be like commonplace, like matter of fact. Everybody knows that Kamala Harris is up there. She's talking about she's going to take on price gouging. She's going to go after landlords. Well, I mean, look, she just sat up there and gave this Maoist speech, right? This 21st century socialist Hugo Chavez speech. And we've seen time and time again with these things do to countries. And you got all these stupid clapping seals in the audience applauding every word. She's talking about going, healthcare costs and medical costs and all this stuff. I mean, just a full-fledged, you see my shirt says vote red, R-E-D, says remove every Democrat. So, I'm talking about Republican red, not communist red. And she's up there giving this Maoist Bolshevik speech up there. It's just sad. And this is the last thing I'll say. Well, two things. Charlemagne's up there talking, and I end up seeing that clip too with the woman talking about the educational system, and we'll probably get into that. Charlemagne's talking about how it's a local issue. When you're talking about schooling, of course, it's not a local issue, but Charlemagne is too stupid. He wouldn't know that. As a matter of fact, our educational system is being influenced internationally, because I can guarantee you, if you were to ask Charlemagne the fraud what UNESCO is, he wouldn't know. But, we'll get to that, get to some of those UN initiatives that I've filtered down into our national politics and the Board of Education and the sway that they have over the state. And of course, that bleeds right into the Civil Rights Act, which, again, I can guarantee you people like Charlemagne support. But what I just find strange to me, especially when you look at blacks, it's like they think this is a game. This is what frustrates me the most. You got Meg Thee Stallion on stage twerking and rappers coming out and this whole sister girl, ski-wee. Hey, I don't even know all the stupid. So I always thought fraternities and sororities was lame because I grew up watching School Days and they made fraternities look lame when shout out to Spike Lee. I just always thought it was lame. I never thought it was something that I ever wanted to be a part of. And it's just funny to me, like they just don't understand what's going on around them and what's going on in the world and how serious and how perilous of a time we're living in. Right. They think that they could just put this I am just so perplexed. Just all the lies, the propaganda. Black folks think this is a game, that this is just cosplay, like you could just get up here and F around. And that's what I find so disheartening in the fact that, they have sway over your life. Unfortunately, as your fellow countrymen, is just one of those things. Those things you just have to deal with in life, because they think it's a game. They can ruin your life making stupid decisions. This is not a joke. It's not a joke.
Yeah, it speaks to, why we want to have a limited power, the federal government to have limited power so we, the people, can have more control. Like that's the whole, it's part of a big idea of America, in the Constitution. We want the federal government to have as little power as possible. I mean, that was the goal, but we are far beyond that. And my thing with the Project 2025, and we'll get into this, I actually think that it is the left's way of trying to combat the Great Reset 2030, because we were all talking about 2030. I mean, some of us, we're still talking about it, but especially, Blanche, I know he's been talking about it a lot. Speaking of, I'll go ahead and bring Blanche up. We've been talking about 2030. I kind of think this is the left's way to try to have their own year thing, where they can kind of put it into the atmosphere and say, see, no, we're not trying to, don't look at 2030, it's Project 2025. That's just my opinion. What do you think, Blanche?
I think you're spot on. I did a video where I was talking about, I compared Project 2025 to Agenda 2030. And basically, you distract people with something that's frivolous. Project 2025 is people's opinions. Whether you like it or not, it's someone's opinion about how they feel like the country should be ran. So that's just what it is. Black people have had very radical things to say about America and what America should be. We've seen folks on C-SPAN calling for death to all white people. We've seen Umar Johnson say that he wants everything to be nationalized with the government. So Black folks have talked radical about America this entire time. Nobody got afraid. Now all of a sudden, Project 2025 comes out and people are shaking in their boots. And meanwhile, Kamala Harris is literally saying, if Congress doesn't act within 100 days, I'm going to take your guns away. So again, the problem with Black people is they're like rich, spoiled children. They have all of this access, but they have no character, they have no discipline, they have no understanding. So it's like you put a bull in a china shop. So you have Black people with all this social leverage, political leverage. Black folks have all the leverage in the world. And so now you have these group of people being used to usher all these agendas in. And so now they're too prideful. You can't tell them anything. You can't, somebody in the comments said, Chuck is a frustrated man. I'm like, why wouldn't he be frustrated? Y'all don't know anything. Y'all don't know how the world operates or works, but you got all the leverage. It is frustrating to walk outside and everything is Black. We got Kamala Harris Black. We got everything is Black. The billboards, the signs, the rhetoric, the
commercials.
Even Trump is saying, I love Black people. So everything is Black. Amidst of everything being Black, Black folks are still saying we're oppressed. So again, Agenda 2030 is the real monster. And so what you do is you keep folks distracted from that with something that's silly like Project 2025. And so at the end of the day, Quisha, you're 100% correct. You're 1,000% correct. That is the monster in the room. And you notice when they talk about Project 2025, they always mention the climate change piece. I'm saying this to you right now. Black people are going to be in the streets protesting for climate lockdowns. Mark my words, Black folks are going to say, we want to be locked in the house. It's too hot. I'm telling you right now, because that's what they attack is the climate change. Climate change is a joke. It is a way to have full control over the citizen. And one more thing, Trump was talking about all electrical vehicles. This flies over Black people's heads. Black folks don't realize if every vehicle is electric, that means every vehicle can be controlled. Do you understand that if every vehicle is electric, that means if you get in your car and you said something wrong on social media that day, guess what? Your car won't start up. Or how about you did something and they lock your car doors, you can't get out. Like Black folks have no idea or concept the times we are in right now. Black folks are still living, I think, in the 80s with Rick James in there. They haven't adapted to the times. Black folks still partying, still thinking it's funny. Like Chuck said, Meg on stage twerking, Quavo getting up. Everybody thinking this a joke. I'm like, wait a minute. Just a couple of years ago, they had y'all lining up in the millions to get a shot. They had y'all getting shots to keep your job, getting shots to go to school. They literally had y'all on lockdown behind getting a shot. And so again, that didn't even wake Black folks up. So at this point now, there has to be something done because it's getting out of control. Now, I'm not an advocate for slavery, but I am an advocate for we got to lock some of these Negroes down. I'm sorry, we got to do it because they're too out of control. We got to do something. I'm sorry. We got to.
Oh my goodness. I got to go back and watch your video because I didn't know you had made that connection as well about the 2025 and 2030. So I'm going to go watch that. And you guys make sure you go watch it as well if you haven't seen it. Oh my goodness. So many things. Trump is trying to kind of explain. When you watch the whole video, I think he did As one of the conservatives said, he drug his cojones all over the faces of those women on that panel. Minus Harris Faulkner. I definitely think he did, and I love that he went in there and he was himself. He didn't try to be nothing else but himself. And then whether you like it or not, I think a lot of people respect that. There's so many things going on in my brain, but without further ado, let me get our fearless leader up here, Mr. Chad O. Jackson. How are you, Mr. Jackson?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. How's our eyesight doing this evening?
Not so good. I can't find my glasses anywhere, so I'm having to wear sunglasses so I can read the comments.
So have you been to the doctor? When we first started the show, you needed to go to the doctor for your glasses because you couldn't see. Are the glasses
Quisha,
that you lost the same glasses that you was trying to see in last year?
Quisha, I don't have time to go to the eye doctor.
Okay, just asking. Look, we're gonna call you Stevie Wonder tonight.
That's fine. So I mean, good comments all around. I can point to things that all of you said that was definitely on my mind as I was making the montage. The reason why I wanted to tackle this subject this evening is because going into the weekend, I was having a conversation with a close relative of mine who is generally apolitical, but she was very frightened by Project 2025. And I asked her, why are you so afraid of Project 2025? And her response was, they're trying to take away our freedom, is what she said. They're trying to take away our freedom. And this is somebody who say that they don't watch the news, they don't listen to urban radio, they're not on social media a lot. So it's like, where are you getting this narrative from? Because it seems to me that every time you see a Black person talking about Project 2025, they have the same fear. They're trying to take away our freedom. And maybe some of you caught it in the montage, just what is meant by that. What they say or construe as freedom is all of the quote unquote socialist gains that were made over the course of the 20th century. So they believe that civil rights equals freedom, that LGBT rights equal freedom, that access to abortion equals freedom, that free lunch, right, equals freedom, that college debt forgiveness equals freedom. All of the things that are socialistic in nature, they equate to freedom, which really isn't freedom because you are giving folks stuff at the expense of someone else's labor. So how is that freedom? That's basic economics 101.
Mm-hmm.
It's not freedom at all. And I'm sure we're going to get into that as the show progresses. The second thing I wanted to talk about is, what's interesting to me about the left's fear-mongering of Project 2025 is the fact that they are accusing the right of trying to do in a very fast-paced manner what they have been doing for the past 100 years.
Right.
Namely, a government overhaul, completely stripping and bastardizing our Constitution, bastardizing our cultural and political ethos, completely subverting it from top to bottom. This is what they've been doing. I say this all the time. I reference FDR's Second Bill of Rights, 1944, where he's speaking the same language as what you saw Kamala Harris speaking up there, the same language that you hear Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Barack Hussein Obama, Hillary Clinton, all the rest of these kooks talking. So this rhetoric, this ideology isn't anything new.
Uh-oh. Lost that.
Can you still see me?
Oh, yeah, we got you. We got you, bro.
But yeah, it's at odds with our Constitution and our original framework, which actually does guarantee freedom, right? So everything, their entire rhetoric from top to bottom is completely antithetical, and I would dare say hostile to the original intention of the Constitution, this experiment of genuine freedom. And so what they've done is they subverted our country. They've convinced generations of Americans that they are right in what they are doing by way of indoctrination through the education and through the schools, to the extent that you don't know what's right side up or what's upside down. And all it takes is for these same folks to come along and say, look, They are trying to like, these are the folks on the right. They're the ones who are unpatriotic. They are the ones who are trying to rein in or usher in a dictatorship when they have been incrementally and gradually building a leftist Marxian dictatorship on this quest toward globalism. So understand the intricacies of this, and hopefully we can flesh it out as the show progresses. And then, too, I wanted to piggyback off of something that Blanche said, namely, well, actually, Blanche and Chuck, where they equated Black folks, and I think Quisha even maybe touched on this a little bit too, where they equated Black culture to children. And it's unfortunately the case. When I looked at the Atlanta rally that they held for Kamala Harris, what was interesting to me is it was reminiscent of the spectators at the Coliseum being entertained by what the government tells them they should be entertained by. What you see with Black culture these days is they are quick to be frightened by what the media tells them they should be frightened by, and excited about what the media tells them they should be excited about. And what we saw with the rally, the fact that they're clapping and hooping and hollering over Quavo getting up there and saying nothing, over Meg Thee Stallion twerking at what's supposed to be a political event, just the decadence, the degeneracy, and the chaos, being excited about that. And then you saw the guy in the montage saying, I don't know what Kamala Harris's platform is. I just know I'm supposed to represent or support the symbol of a Black woman in office. This is where we are, folks. So you're excited about what the media tells you to be excited about, and you're frightened of Project 25 because the media told you to be frightened about it. Never mind the fact that you don't know what's in it.
Right.
And so this is where we are in the political landscape, not only with Blacks, but everyone. I would venture to say all ethnicities. And it's quite troublesome. But anyway, I'm anxious to get into the subject matter.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about this idea of the 2025 and 2030. So and all of the things that this would mean. Because you're right, Chad, like we have the way, Black Americans in particular, and I think it's across the board because most Americans have gone through the public school system.
Real quick, Quisha, and probably this isn't even the time to say this because you're wanting to compare 2030 to 2025, and I want to go there, but I would, maybe I should save this for later, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it since I've already cut you off. I don't think Project 2025 goes far enough. I genuinely don't think it goes far enough. Okay. If you look at the Q&A that they did of what, because the fact that the Heritage Foundation, they did a kind of Q&A response to the fear surrounding Project 2025. And what they attempted to do, and we can pull it up on the screen later, but what they've attempted to do is to try to articulate in a very elemental or elementary way what Project 2025 is versus what it is not. They say things like, we don't want to get rid of Social Security. We don't want to get rid of Medicaid and Medicare. We think these are good things, which we all know that these are socialist things, right? So in my opinion, I don't think Project 2025 goes far enough. But that's just me. Okay. Anyway, I just wanted to say that.
You're right.
No, but I mean, I haven't read the whole thing, or I did read the summary, but but to me, kind of, it really doesn't matter, and I'm saying it doesn't matter because the narrative that's being set, just like the narrative, like the actual facts of 2030 and the narrative of 2025. Them being able to have their own, little year that is trying to, terrify people. One is actually legitimately terrifying, when the other is just the narrative of it is, it is just meant to be this boogeyman. And it's disturbing how many people, like, your relative, and I hear people talking about it too, all the the media, social media, and all that stuff, the people that are saying it, it's amazing that even I don't even believe, like, I think if people did read it, the narrative of, because it came from a conservative think tank, which they probably don't even know about, the Heritage Foundation, probably have no idea about it. It's going to be, clutching pearls and everybody ready to gasp anyway, because of the narrative that they have created, the left, the narrative that the left has created about conservatives. And so how do you combat all of that? What do you do? This woman, Kamala Harris, forget 2025. She's saying right now, I guess when in office, she wants to completely eliminate private healthcare. The woman, we thought Barack Obama was bad. It's like, hold my beer. I'm about to really commify this country, and so she in all of her foolishness and her black girl magic and all this kind of stuff is literally putting a spell on the American people. Like, this Jezebel is putting a spell on the American people. Anyway, yeah, because I called them Ahab and Jezebel. That was Biden and Kamala. But to me, it's the narrative about it. What do you say, Chuck?
Well, yeah, just going back to what Chad said, it's like when something becomes ingrained, it becomes a part of the American fabric. And like Chad says, we know what needs to be done, right? We know, we understand. But now those of us on the so-called right are so gripped and paralyzed with, and perhaps not us on the panel, and perhaps not a lot of the people in the audience, the people who watch Chad's content, watch our content, aren't. But those that I guess represent the conservative cause, they're so gripped and they're so paralyzed with fear that they, and I think I said this a few weeks ago, that they are more afraid of the stigma and the backlash than they are at the consequences of what will happen if we continue to go forward. It's like, okay, here's the cards that conservatives have been dealt, and we'll just sort of deal with it, deal with the situation on these terms, and as opposed to actively trying to push back or convince the American people that this is a bad thing and this needs to go, or that we need to go back to this and we need to do that. Instead of doing that, it's like, again, we'll deal with, they say, well, conservatives, Republicans want to take away Social Security. They want to come after Medicaid, come after Medicare. All right. And instead of saying, like, perhaps that would be a good idea, right? Republicans just say, no, that's not what we're trying to do. They say, well, you heard in the montage that this should frighten every federal government employee, what this whole conservative agenda or Project 2025, what this is all about. This should frighten every federal employee. And instead of conservatives saying, yeah, we are coming for the administrative state, it's time for each and every last one of you SOBs to go out in the world and actually produce something of value. We are so sick and tired of you leeching off the people as if we, the people, exist solely to fill your coffers while you promote all of these cockamamie ideas that come out of these demonic universities. They're not saying that. For as much as we like to say that a boy, because Trump did go in there and, he held his own, and he, kind of, people want to say, well, he told her off, or, he got back with her and so on and so forth. But and then he didn't do a bad job, but, he surely didn't say what I would have said. I can guarantee you that. And Chad even himself had said in the past that, for all of the attacks about Trump, or the attacks on Trump, stating that he is a threat to democracy, Chad says, I wish he was a threat to democracy. Could you imagine President Trump, or any politician for that matter, getting up on a stage and saying, yeah, Yeah, I am a threat to democracy. I am coming for democracy, right? So many people. Could you imagine the clip? Could you imagine them just snipping, just taking that little piece and just putting it on repeat and having it play over and over and over again of you saying that, yes, you are trying to undermine democracy. Just, and so many people would, it wouldn't even dawn on them. What is he talking about? Why would he even say such a thing? But yeah, and still that very same person, with all of the things that the Democrats have been doing over the past several decades, let alone the rhetoric of Kamala Harris herself, just within the past a few years or a few months, even, it doesn't even do as much as raise no warning flags, no light bulbs. There's nothing. But when Donald Trump says something, or it's oh, this is the end of life, this is end of America as we know it, right? The very same America that they claim they hate so much.
Yeah.
So it's a shame. It's a shame because conservatives are really, or so they act as though their hands are virtually tied, because once the left does something, that's it. It's over. It can't be undone. It can't be fixed. That's it. And so now conservatives have to circumvent, what is there, what we know is wrong, what we know is bad. We have to sort of work around it in order to try and bring some sense of sanity back to this country. And I quite frankly, I don't know if that's the way to go. I think that conservatives, by and large, many of us are we're just too polite, and we're just too nice, and we're just too patient, and we don't have the gall to stoop to the level of the left, because they are so unscrupulous. It's just it's just a polite way of putting it. Many of us just don't have that in us.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's worth pointing out, because everything that Chuck said is 100% spot on. I think one of the things that's worth pointing out is the fact that although what FDR said in 1944 regarding the Second Bill of Rights, even though that was bold and that was, I guess, dare I say, extremist, and it was coming off the back of the fact that he was already a very popular president. He was elected, I think, 4 times by this time.
4 times.
And not only that, whenever you had the Great Depression, which was caused by the government, right? The government caused it, and then the government had the fix, which really wasn't a fix at all, because it turned us even bigger and deeper into a socialist country. You had at the same time the likes of Columbia University and Harvard and University of Chicago and others who were turning out students who would go on to be very prominent figures in finance, very prominent figures in Hollywood and entertainment and literature and in education. That was, in a sense, changing the American mind to be more favorable of socialism. And so what FDR was working with was a backdrop that was giving a kind of rubber stamp to this notion of socialism, of moving us toward a socialist country. And so if that was going on in 1944, you can only imagine what the duration or the remainder of the 20th century gave us. And then here we are a quarter into the 21st century. And so the fact is, to Chuck's point, for Trump to come out and say, yeah, I am a threat to democracy, is kind of like political kamikaze. Insofar that, the minds of the American public are already fashioned against a republic, are already fashioned against genuine freedom, are already fashioned to believe that this kind of road to serfdom is progress. And so how do you undo that in an incremental way, in a gradual way, in the same way that the socialists have been able to do over the course of 100 years? The fact is, we can't fast pace or fast track this undoing in a matter of 2 or 3 years, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to undo over 100 years of damage, of just downward spiral. It takes work on all fronts. And I think that's kind of what Chuck is speaking to a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
But I do think Trump is being strategic, and I like a lot of the things that he said in that interview with the black journalists. There's some things that I wish you would have said this, or I wish you would have pushed this point further. But at the same time, to Chuck's point, to be a successful politician in 21st century America, you do have to play the game, and it's unfortunate. But part of me says Trump, go all the way, but the other part of me says, I get it, but it's unfortunate. All in all, it's very unfortunate, because I see it in my own little plumber brain. I see it as when the right acquiesces and dance to the groove or to the music that is controlled by the DJ, who is a leftist, you are in a sense being a kind of co-conspirator in the downward destruction of our country, because minds aren't being enlightened against socialism. If anything, it's only being doubled down, and that to me is unfortunate.
The only time you should be kind of playing it safe and dancing along to the leftist DJ, the commie DJ, is if you were dancing just so you can get close to him so you can take him out. That's the only time. Other than that, like, what exactly are you doing? But I guess, what I've realized about myself is I am an incrementalist, because I think that because just how hard change is for human beings, it's really hard for people to just change on a whim. Those kinds of things come through like divine revelation, when you can, change like that, in my opinion, or something traumatic happens to you, and something like that, which we can say also divine intervention. But most Americans, like I said, that have gone through the public school system, so all of these ideas have been pumped into their minds. First of all, we're starting out on a slate where most human beings think we're equivalent to animals, like literal dogs and cats. They don't see humanity as a superior being. We've been taught that, we come from these animals. So the idea of who you are as a human being is already diminished. And, so what does that do? That means you can advocate for killing children and just call it reproductive rights. That means you don't have a problem talking about, climate change and things like that. And, nobody will say anything to you. You won't even think there's anything wrong with it, because you have been taught these things your whole entire life. So that's just my opinion. I think it's incremental change.
Mm-hmm.
And Blanche, you can take the lead. Sorry, you guys, I'm a little distracted. My daughter's like moving around and doing stuff back here behind the scenes. So
I was in the comments. So take the lead on what now? What happened?
Oh, I'm sorry. Good gracious, we're all distracted tonight. Well, no, I was saying, I think change has to come, like to Chad's point. On one hand, you want to just blast through and say, let's change it right now today. And then on the other hand, you're like, it's going to take inching along. So I was just asking you what are your thoughts on that?
Before Blanche, could somebody do the business of excusing what's his face here, Berg Hall Rostopoli? I don't know. He in the live stream here on YouTube talking crazy. So can we please just escort him to the door, please? Thank you.
I just did that thing.
I'm trying to pull back a little bit. Guys, I'm fully self-aware of who I am, my faults, my strengths, my weaknesses, and so on. And so I know I could be a bit of a talker. So I'm gonna pull back a little bit tonight. Make sure I share the floor equally. So, for those of you out there in chat world, if you want to
Chuck, don't
get
do that.
pot shots
don't do that.
listen,
Chuck,
Chad.
look,
If they want to get
listen.
little pot shots in,
I don't mean to cut you off, Chuck.
Tonight might be the night. Tonight might be the night. I might let you slide tonight.
I don't mean to cut you off, Chuck, but the thing is like, I mean, the reason why the show has been able to go on so long is because, I mean, I think we all have something good to contribute, and yeah, you can tend to go on for a bit sometimes, but everything that you say is worthwhile to the conversation, and I think people are benefited from it. So you don't need to apologize for that, for one, and then two, it's like, I mean, if you're talking about dragging people in the comment section and you're trying to roll back on that, I get it, but at the same time, you shouldn't make any apologies for it. Go ahead, Blanche.
They're gonna talk a little slick tonight. What the guy say earlier, Blanche, about me being frustrated? I'll let that slide, but y'all ain't I'm not gonna let too many more slide. Don't activate me. That's all I'm gonna say.
He's not a killer, but don't push him.
Right. Go ahead, man.
There we go again with that degenerate music.
I don't know. I think that most time people try to make change from the symptoms and not the actual root cause. And so if you're going to make change, you got to start from the beginning, at the base level, at the bottom. So someone mentioned about, America being a republic. Well, you got to go all the way back to what the Constitution says. You got to start from there. So you really have to have the Constitution and look at what we got now and go piece by piece from the start of it. You can't just go try to attack everything. Now you got to go back to the foundation, then start chipping away piece by piece. I think now people just attack the symptoms. And I think Project 2025, based on what I've read, they're trying to, this is their way of trying to dismantle all stuff that's been going on over the past, I think Chad said 100 years. But you really got to go back. And I think most of it really starts with education. I know that state of Louisiana, they're putting the 10 Commandments back in the schools. Maybe the Constitution should be in the schools and taught. Maybe America being the republic should be taught when students are young, so they can understand what it actually is and not this whole democracy stuff. So we got to, I don't know, the problem, we have to go far. We have to go back so far to where I don't know if we even have time to do it. Do we have, how many years we got? I don't know, so I just think that we got to start back when children are 5 years old, and this has to start from there and then going up, because now most of these people have their mind made up. You mentioned, Quisha, Project 2025, whether they read it or not, it doesn't matter. Their mind's already made up. The fact that it says it's from conservatives, it doesn't matter. It could say free money for all Black people. They trying to kill us. It doesn't matter what it doesn't matter what it says at this point. It's because their mind, it's all emotional based. It's not based in reality. It's not based in logic or fact. This is what they wanted. They wanted to get grown men saying things. Like one guy said, he said, I don't have all the facts. He said, but I'm willing to argue with you 4 years from now after she's president. These are grown men just saying, I don't care about my future, my family, just get the woman in office and let's deal with it. And so this is what they wanted, though. And it's sad because I hear mostly the most radical rhetoric on Kamala is from Black men. And I knew it was going to happen because I saw Black men get taken out with George Floyd. When I saw Black men making themselves George Floyd in 2020, identifying with George Floyd, feeling George Floyd, I knew it was over then. How do you identify with a degenerate bum dirtbag? How do you even, but again, Black men managed to do it. So now when it's 4 years later, and we have a woman running for president, the same way George cried out for mama, which was his girlfriend, is the same way Black men are crying out for these women today, saying, please let me have access to the bedroom. I'll vote for Kamala. And so really it's just a sad state of affair, but this is what they wanted. They wanted men to be weak and cowardly and disgusting, as to now Chuck mentioned it about Republicans and conservatives being afraid to offend. Listen, whether you all say it or not, they're going to say you said it. Whether you all do it or not, they're going to say you did it. So my thing is, what are y'all afraid of? You're getting the punishment as if you're guilty anyway. So you might as well go ahead and do it. So if I was Trump, I would have said the hell to all y'all nigglets, all y'all. I would have cussed all of them out and then walked off. I'd have dropped the mic and left. I'm not gonna play with y'all. I ain't finna kowtow to y'all for what? For me to answer your questions, be honorable, be forthright, have character. You still call me racist? You still lie on me? What's the point? No, I'm out of here.
I think he did the right thing by not
He
trying
did.
as much to stoop to their level, because I don't think he would have won anybody that way. But what I do think was good was that they could hear, Black people could hear from his own mouth in full context what he thought. And the fact that he didn't try to switch it up like Kamala, 2020 and doing all this other bull crap, that putting on that heavy, she is from California, grew up in Canada. Like, ain't nothing Southern about her. Just like Hillary Clinton, ain't nothing Southern about her.
I ain't no West tired.
Right. I ain't too tired yet, boss. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez with the we don't have to
Lie.
yeah, we know
But this
it
is what some
looks
look
like, and
like.
you are from the Bronx. Like, Hillary is from New York. Like, y'all need to stop. Like, they need to quit. But he didn't,
She ain't
Trump
from the
didn't do
Bronx.
any of that. Huh?
She's from Puerto Rico, isn't she?
She ain't from the Bronx. She from I think a city. Somebody in the chat from New York helped me out. An area called, I think it's called Westchester or West Manchester or something like that up there in New York. It's like a upper middle class enclave.
She's from New York. She does not have a Southern accent,
Right.
like at all, like ever, never. Like, I have more of a reason to bounce in between, because I literally grew up half in the South and half up north, and sometimes I do bounce back and forth, depending on who I'm around, or just whatever. Most people can't tell that I have an accent. Most people say that I don't have an accent, probably because of that, having lived in both places for a fair amount of time. But it's just funny to me how,
you talk white.
Well, I can hear that too. But okay, Westchester County, just north of the Bronx. All right, thank you, Hugo. So, him being authentic, I honestly think that resonated with a lot of those folks. Everybody in that room didn't hate Trump, because you heard something. He was himself. Because Trump is funny. He was like, I don't know. I just look around and she just turned black. It was like she just became black one day, which is literally what Black people are saying. Like, whether we agree with this whole Black notion and all of this stuff, and all that, but it is true. All of a sudden, she just became black, and he picked up what everybody else has already been talking about, and we can see from like the Charlemagne, the Breakfast Club, that people are calling in saying, yeah, I don't want that. I would like to go to that Breakfast Club clip, because I want to ask you guys. I hope I can find the one. I know.
Go ahead.
I hope I can find the one it was. Okay, here it is.
I don't think America's ready. I don't think America's ready for a female president. You know what? I'm a Black man, and I absolutely do not want another Democratic president in there. I think we should give the Republicans another try. There's a lot of agendas that the Democratic Party has kind of put into place that I don't support. I think they're destroying the Black man. They're destroying the Black family.
Not ready. You just get ready. Like, what you talking about? She know what she up against. Like, you just get ready. I don't understand. Like, she not ready. How y'all gonna tell somebody not ready?
And that's another good point just brought up. Donald Trump had no political experience whatsoever.
Not one.
None.
Nothing at all.
So this woman has been a senator, attorney general, a vice president. She seemed ready to me.
What a joke. And and Chuck already exhausted this point, and I don't mean to use the word exhausted like that, but
I get it.
He made a really good point in terms of, like, if anybody has any kind of business running the country or running the executive branch of the government, it's the man who has spent his life in business. Not the activist, not the social justice activist who slept her way to the top, who has a background that's just as questionable, just as sinister, just as groomy as the likes of Barack Hussein Obama, who we've seen the destruction that he caused, the mayhem and decadence that he caused with his 8 years. And so, I mean, like, I'll take Trump's 4 years over Obama's 8 years any day of the week.
Mhm.
But yet you have these clowns sitting up there, Charlemagne and Jess Hilarious, who's not hilarious at all, in my opinion, basically slapping down their callers and saying, no, get in line. You will vote for the black woman. It's insane to me.
And you know, we talk, and I've been seeing a whole lot of stuff on social media, a lot of these clips and TikTokers and stuff like that, making fun of Kamala Harris, you know, questioning her ethnicity. I firmly believe that somewhere between 80% of those people, between 8 and 9 of those people are probably, if they vote at all, will probably vote for her anyway. And I've actually seen some of those clips where, you know, some black men even were making fun of Kamala Harris and said that all in all, I'll probably still vote for her, but such and such and so forth. And so I don't know how well this whole strategy is working. But, you know, I to me, like, even listening to the caller, it's like I get it, and I'm glad, I'm happy he said what he said, but it's like you're seeing and you're seeing blacks not so much changing or reversing. It's like they're even though they're opposed to Kamala Harris in some way, shape, form, or fashion, it's like when you can infer, or what am I trying to say? You can hear where, and perhaps this is just a step, right? This is just a step in the right direction. This is me thinking positively about it, but it's like they still don't get it. It's like, I don't fully understand not just the functions of government, but I don't understand the fundamental role of government. You understand? It's like if we were to simply take Democrat politicians and replace them with Republican politicians, and then voila, everything will be solved, and maybe your life will get better. But I would like to ask that caller, what exactly does a Republican administration look like that would sort of pave the way for a better kind of life for you and yours? Because see, the idea of a representative government is the idea that you yourself could roll out of bed, could get off your couch, and you can go and represent the people, quote unquote. See, this is going back to this is the fundamental basis of the whole progressive mindset from Dewey and Littman and Bernays and all of the early socialists and eugenicists of the late 19th, early 20th century. The premise to them was that society had become so complicated and had become so complex, and the division of labor had become so intricate that the running of society had to be left up to the experts. And so that completely undermined and kind of pulled the rug out from underneath this notion that the people are even capable of governing themselves in the first place. So, you know, this whole talk of, well, she's not ready, or she's not prepared, or she's not prepared, not so much for the reasons that the caller would think, right? She's just not prepared for the job because, of course, she's an enemy to a free people. But, you know, I just, and I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade or be the party pooper here, because I do like to see the blacks pushing back against Kamala. But there's, you know, and it takes time, right? It's steps. This is a process, and maybe this is a good first step. But I would like to get to be confident, to gain some sense of confidence that more and more Black people were really starting to actually understand the system and understand the world and understand society in a way that's not simply, well, I think I'm just going to vote for Trump this time because I am gravitated to the dynamism of his personality. I'm happy for that, but I wish there was like, a lot more there. When a guy says, "Oh, I think we just need to give the Republicans more time or give them," I don't know. It's like, well, what would you want a Republican politician to do exactly? And that'll tell me exactly what I need to know about you and how you view politics. Not just so much, well, we need to give the other party a chance, because politics and the running of society isn't some esoteric maze of incomprehensible abstractions that they try to make it out to be. It really isn't that complicated. It really isn't. And I think we've kind of made it that way. And people are left to sort of vote and see politics based upon something that is extremely silly and trivial, like who Meg the Stallion gets on stage and twerks for. It's unfortunate. I mean, it's Black folks in general, whether it be Republican or Democrat, they place too much of an emphasis on the role of the state, on the role of government in the first place, regardless of whatever party is. How many Black folks honestly believe in keeping the government small?
And that's that
that's
point
my
that you just
question.
made. That point that you just made, Chuck, about Black folks and the desire to not only keep government big but expand it all the more, I think is the very reason why it was so easy to entice a lot of fear with respect to Project 2025, because from my understanding, if the role of Project 2025 is to actually roll back the administrative state, is in fact to basically enforce checks and balances on Congress, who has run amok, who has basically pushed us more and more toward a socialist state. If the objective is to try to roll back on the bureaucracy, which I don't know if y'all caught in the montage, one of Roland Martin's panelists who said, look, if you're Black, then you have a stake in keeping government large, because you're probably getting food stamps, you're probably are going to benefit somehow from Medicaid and Medicare, you're probably going to benefit from Social Security, your kids probably get free lunch some way or another. You should be concerned about this, because that means the government's going to take away some of your provisions in the implementation of Project 2025. And so because, again, to your point, so many Black folks believe that the government should be their provider, that the government should be Big Brother, it's to that extent, I believe, that it was so easy to strike so much fear in them, again, surrounding 2025.
Because it is popular, Blanche. I just want to say one thing before Blanche chimes in, because it's popular for people to say now that, well, we need to give Republicans a chance because Democrats haven't done anything for us. Democrats haven't done, and that's it bothers me. And I understand how we do it. We love to play that clip where Kamala Harris says that, well, she's not going to do anything for Black folks. Of course, she's saying that, she's not going to do anything for Black folks in particular, because what she plans on doing is going to benefit all Americans and not just Black people. But the reason why we like to use that is we like to turn it around on Blacks who are so, because of this persecution complex that they suffer from. These are the people who are really frustrated, by the way, not me, but they are the ones who have the issues emotionally. That's why they're easily led by their emotions, because they have this persecution complex, and they're so collectively egocentric and narcissistic that they think that everything, of course, should revolve around them. One reason being is because they built the country, right? This country was built on the backs of their ancestors. And so you have to do things specifically for Black people. And it is to the extent that Democrats have not done that, we need to give Republicans a chance. Well, if you want them to do something for you in particular, well, then they're going to turn around and become the very same Democrat Party that you just cast off, that you just cast aside. Because the problem is not that the Democrats aren't doing anything for Black people. The problem is that they are doing precisely what they told you that they were going to do, precisely what you asked for. And this is the net result of it, because these things don't work. And that's the part that I don't think Blacks fully understand, is that socialism does not work. If you take away a Democrat and make a Republican, it's going to be the same result. These things don't work. Well, go ahead, Branch.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, whoever. I'm sorry.
So the caller that called in to the Breakfast Club, I think he gets it, even if he can't articulate it, because the first thing he said was, he said, we can't do another Democrat in office. So I think he's felt what has happened with Biden being in office. And if you think about it, if anybody is semi-observant, they see what they're pushing. Even if you're not into politics, you can hear the rhetoric. They're talking about trans this, trans that, gay this. So as a man, you're listening to this, you're like, what are these people talking about? I don't resonate with none of this. So I think he understands. That's why he said we should get a Republican another 4 years. I get it, but the problem is that because Black culture is so communist in the way that you're scared to even say, you try to frame your comments so you don't offend the Black mafia, you don't offend the Black oligarchs, so you try to say it in a nice way possible, because you still gotta, your big mama's still in the house, your sister's there, your friend, like everybody, like most Black folks that speak out against this stuff, they are surrounded. Like, we think that we're large in numbers, but we're not. I know that one lady was talking about Black conservative women. That is rare. Most Black women are going to support Kamala Harris, whether they just are. It just is what it is. Oh, yeah. But most Black conservatives are surrounded by Black people that don't know anything. And so they've had to adapt and navigate. Think about it, you still want to be able to survive in the environment you live in. So they have to speak and frame things in a way that they don't get attacked, jumped on, lose their job, lose their house. You know, they gotta frame it, because these people are radical and they're crazy. I think more people get it, but the problem is, again, it doesn't matter if they get it or not. It's going to be a character issue. When you hear somebody say, even last time, Black folks were saying, we don't care if Joe Biden cheats, as long as we get Trump out of office. This is the mindset of, because in Black culture, cheating isn't bad. And we can talk about all this race stuff.
If it's done by a Democrat.
Right. We can talk about all this race stuff we want, but the fundamental problem with Black people is that if white people aren't perfect, they don't have to be either. And so if you notice, everything they're talking about, they're going to say, well, so-and-so did this and so-and-so did this. Well, Trump did this and Trump. So again, it doesn't really matter. It's going to be a character issue. And like I said, Black folks are going to vote for Kamala Harris. They just are. Even, you know, there may be some folks that don't. Maybe 20% of Black men won't. Maybe 6% of Black women will. But for the most part, they're voting for Kamala Harris. Think about it. It's an easy choice. I can vote for Kamala, still keep my girlfriend, still keep my boyfriend, still keep my family, still have fun, still go out, go to my, like, life is just easier voting for Kamala. It's just an easier life. And so, I don't know. I think people get it more we get credit for, but to me, it's just character. Like most folks in these comments trolling, they know good and well the Democrats are nuts. They know this. But they're still holding on to, if I got a chance to stop somebody white from winning, somebody white and conservative from winning, somebody white and Christian winning, somebody white on the right winning, if I can stop that, then I'll cut off my nose and spite my face to do it. And so that's what many Black folks will literally, if I told them, if you vote for Kamala, you're going to be in a camp in 3 years, they would still do it, because they would rather see Trump not win and go to prison. So if you said you in the camp in 3 years or Trump in prison tomorrow, what do you think Black folks going to pick? They're going to pick Trump. I'm just saying they are. Like, so again, because we got it so good in America, because we have it so good in this country, Black people are able to go against the government and still have a good life. Black people are able to hate the country they live in and still have a good life. So I don't know how you turn this around. I just don't, because they haven't really experienced anything like communism to where they get food rationed out to them every day. They got to work this job. Like, they haven't experienced that. They've been able to be revolutionaries and still say good morning to their white boss and make six figures. Like, they have the best of both worlds. So yeah,
or have their own business, like actually be entrepreneurs and talk about the whole capitalism. Like, it's the funniest thing to me.
let me just say this real quick, because everything that Blanchard and Chuck just said is 100% true. In my opinion, a lot of Black folks want socialism and they want Democrat politicians for the same reason that, and I hate to say it, but many of them are quick to sign up for a high interest payday loan or title loan. Namely, I get the money, I get the instant gratification, and yes, I am indebted to this lender, or yes, I have to now kind of be restrictive to everything else I have access to as a result of having signed my name on the dotted line, but at least I got my instant gratification. If we get to a point in this country where a Democrat or Republican politician say, look, for the sake of saving the climate, we are going to, in a sense, outlaw all gas-powered vehicles, and we're going to enforce that only electrical vehicles be on the road. But you know what? Don't worry about it. We're going to give every able-bodied adult an electric vehicle, right? A lot of Black folks, unfortunately, will hoop and holler and yes and amen. Yeah, I get a free electric vehicle that's subsidized by the taxpayer. But to Blanche's point, now the government has a means to shut down your vehicle if you say something they don't like on social media, or if you do something that runs afoul with the administrative state. And so be careful about how much power you vest in the government, because even though you're getting something out of it, you are basically enslaving yourself to that government, to the bureaucracy, to the powers that be. I mean, we are already under governance. Anywhere we go in the country, anywhere we go in the world, governance is inevitable. However, this constitutional republic that we have is the thing that guarantees the most, human freedom that we know on this side of heaven. And so you should be very careful with how much power you vest in the government, because you think you're getting some kind of instant gratification out of it. Quisha, do you mind if I play this quick 10-second clip?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
It's not going to divert from the conversation. I think it's going to add to it. But check this out.
Being an HBCU alum and D9 member, we've already seen that push and that call for all of us to rally behind her. I do feel like the symbolism of the moment does urge us a little bit more, even without hearing the platform, to be behind it.
Oh gosh, because when you go to Kamala has no platform right now. Like, if you go to her website, it's just donations. Like, you don't even know what you donate. Donations. Yes, exactly. Donations, not the chicken bone. No, but all she got on there is a greasy chicken bone. Ain't no meat on it. It's just already eaten chicken bone. Okay, just click the button and give me some money. She hasn't had to defend anything. She hasn't had to defend her crazy record. She hasn't had to defend the fact that this woman is not elected. Nobody voted for you. This is really the craziest thing that is happening right now. If you think about it, the fact that
and all the support she has right now is artificial. It's propaganda led. It's not.
True enough.
But go ahead.
But the fact that this woman, this person, because it wouldn't matter who she is, they have literally nobody voted for this. You talk about democracy, talk about a democracy, a constitutional republic, anything semblance of what we are founded on. This woman has not gotten one freaking vote to run for president. Right. That is the most insane thing to me. Like, that is the part that is so crazy, because that is truly the symbol that America has fallen, where a person can run for president that wasn't, where the current president is still in office. He didn't die. He's still there. Nobody voted for this woman. This is so nuts. She's a vice president who nobody voted for. The current president, who she's vice president under, is still alive and still being president, and she is being coronated as the nominee. That is the symbol to me that this is that we are in big. We got big problems. Like, that is crazy that they would even try some stuff like that. But it just goes to show you that nobody, I mean, the black folks aren't talking about that. They're not talking about that this woman wasn't even elected. Even Black Lives Matter put out a tweet and was like, we didn't vote for her. Talking about, they literally called them out on democracy, saying this is not democratic. And I was like, well, you got a point there.
Quisha, do you think black people care about following the rules and order? And the sad thing about this is they could do anything and black folks are going to accept it. So it is the nature. We in black culture. This is what it is. So she can say and do anything. Quavo, Meg Thee Stallion, she got my vote.
You talk about an insurrection. This is a coup. Coup, Kamala. This is a coup. They have literally installed, violently taken out the person that they didn't want, Joe Biden. And I will say violently because this man has been tormented and I don't like him. I don't, but he's corrupt. He's all those things. But they literally watched this man be incoherent, totally not able to put a sentence together, used him for what they wanted to use him for, got him out when it was time to get him out, and installed this person. This is crazy.
And it's funny.
Crazy.
I'm sorry, Quisha. Will you finish?
Sorry, it's crazy. That's it.
I just wanted to say too, and to Blanche's point, not only do black folks not care about the rules, they don't even know the rules. The whole delegate process, they have. Listen, y'all, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm serious, and I think a lot of Americans suffer from this problem. But of course, I won't even soften the blow to try and broaden it and say, well, it's not blacks, it's everybody. Blacks have this problem, especially. They do not know they understand very, very little, if anything, about the political process. I mean, just let alone the world in general. And again, I find it strange, Quisha, like you said, they just anoint her so that they can run the Obama, the Barack Obama playbook 2.0 once again, and instead put her in it's a female this time. It's funny how all of a sudden the left knows what a woman is, but it's just, they just want to run the same play over and over again. And of course, gaslight you when you point out this fact, because of course they're trying to cement their intersectional coalition by appointing various minorities to different positions, whilst telling you that it's racist to point out what they themselves admit that they were doing up front.
Exactly.
And of course,
they champion DEI. I'm sorry, they was the
go
one
ahead, Quisha.
saying that DEI was the greatest thing, and Republicans should be ashamed of themselves that they don't like DEI. And we're like, all right. Well,
And
you
then-
and DEI hire. You,
Right.
Corinne Jean-Pierre, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. All three of y'all are DEI hires. No,
They said it.
don't say that. How dare you say that? Y'all
They said
liked it. And I don't
They
understand
said
why Republicans are running away from it.
Exactly.
They are the ones who said it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't back up not one bit.
Mhm.
Sorry. This
Yeah, they said it. And and this whole thing, I'm gonna go back a few moments here, just talking about this whole thing, how we're seeing breakdowns in society. Before we even get to the political process, a whole lot of other things have taken place prior to. Chad brought up a good point. He talked about, for example, like payday loans and these sorts of things. And it's hard to know why a person would get a payday loan or cash advance loan. Maybe there are some unforeseen emergency, car repair, medical expenses. Who knows? Why? You didn't cross all your T's and dot your I's beforehand. Is
Not making wise decisions.
Right, whatever. Right. But anyway, just not making wise decisions overall. right? To Chad's point. And then, but what does the demagogue then come and do? They talks about how these lenders, they come into these struggling minority communities and prey on them by giving them, it's essentially what amounts to usury or like loan sharking. They come in and give them, issue these predatory loans with these astronomically high interest rates because they're trying to get over on them. It's just like, no, they've made poor decisions, didn't protect themselves as they otherwise should have, and now they're in a bit of a quagmire, and now they need quick money and they need it fast. Well, guess what? Those types of individuals are risky investments because that's what interest is. It's the cost of money, the cost to lend. You make an investment in the applicant, and in turn you make a profit by giving them something up front that they didn't have initially, but they need it. That's why they come to you. These people are risky. And so the riskier the investment, the higher the interest rate. Then they come in and they tell you, well, Black folks on average, they get they get higher interest rates than whites and other ethnic groups and so on and so forth. And then now you have this other faux controversy. You have this other fake a social justice issue that lenders are taking advantage of minority people, and the furthest thing could be from the truth. And then that could be and then you have these people, they come in, these local community activists, these Obama types, and they shut these businesses down. They wage war against these businesses on a local level. And then, now the folks who, for whatever reason, right, need these cash advance loans, for whatever, like I said, for whatever reason, they're no longer available because you have your community activist types who shut down all of these predatory lending organizations. Again, just completely and utterly ridiculous. And lastly, when Kamala Harris, she talks about price gouging and these sorts of things. For the people in the chat who are saying all sorts of stupid things and trolling and this, that, and the third, just ask Black folks, do they even understand? And even with rent controls, and what this is price setting, okay? Education, listen up, trolls. I'm educating you. Listen closely. Give you basic economics 101. This has nothing to do with what's in between your legs and the melanin content on your exterior, okay? This applies to us all because this is natural law. Listen, because I'm about to educate you. When people talk about setting prices, what they are doing is it's almost like a sleight of hand. In other words, the government is trying to convince you that they can give you more of what you want by making it more affordable, okay? But when they make it more affordable, what they're doing is they are attacking the producer because they're not allowing the producer to put their commodities up for sale at market rate. So when they don't allow the producer to put their commodity up for sale at market rate, right? They can no longer make profit. They can't cover the cost of production. When they can't cover the cost of production, they no longer produce it. So setting prices does not create more of a thing. You need less government regulation to create more of a thing, whatever that thing is, whether we're talking automobiles, whether we're talking medical insurance. The free market creates market diversity that allows for people to make these sorts of trade-offs in the free market, in an open market that best suits them, based upon what it is that they can't afford. Everybody can't afford the best, the bright. Everybody can't afford a Lamborghini or Bentley or Rolls Royce. Some of us got to drive a Ford Focus. That's just the way it is. But when you say you're going to control prices and make it to where everybody can afford a Lamborghini, guess what? Lamborghinis will no longer be produced. And now the Ford Focus becomes the Lamborghini. And only the most privileged among us will be able to afford the Ford Focus. And then everybody else is going to be walking. That's the way this works. That's what happens when you set prices. And oftentimes, and again, they tell you that they're price gouging, that they're trying to get over on you. These people have no interest in marking commodities well above the going rate in the market, because guess what? the democracy of an economy allows for the individual who's his own personal dictator to make the choice to spend less money as opposed to spending more. That's what competition in the market does. You cannot overprice because somebody will just come in and undercut you. That's the way it works. So when people are not allowed to sell at market rate, what they do is they hoard. Okay, they hoard when they can't make profit. And then what the government then does, the government comes in and they accuse those people of being reactionary. This is what Mao did. This is what Lenin and Stalin did. Okay, they accuse these people of being enemies of the revolution because these were the bourgeois property owning capitalists who were trying to hoard their resources at the expense of the collective, of the group, of the country, of the nation, and of the class. But guess what? Everything that you rely upon, whether you think it should be a right or not, whether we're talking housing, whether we're talking medical insurance and so on and so on, medical care and so on and so forth, someone has to produce it. And no one has, I know you think that they should, but no one has a duty to produce for you. They have a right to protect their own human capital and individual capital from your piracy and from your covetousness. But somebody has to produce. So the question for all of you Kamala sycophants out there is, how is she, or government in general for that matter, how does government spur economic growth? How does the government entice human beings with the capital to do so, to produce the things that you need? Government can't do that. So when you hear Kamala saying the things that she's saying, why doesn't that bother you? I know why, because you're stupid and you don't know anything. I'm gonna just come out and say, oh, that activated me now. You're stupid and you don't know anything. But we got to be the sellouts for bringing it to everybody's attention.
I think an interesting element to add to this, I think a very interesting element to add to this whole thing too, Chuck, is the fact that is the aloofness and the dismissiveness and outright disdain that a lot of these leftists like AOC and Kamala Harris and others have toward the producer. We're going to tax the rich of their fair share. These are the people who are the producers, and they speak so loosely and so condescendingly toward the producers as if they, the government, are the ones who are doing the producing. Oh, you're going to produce anyway. We get to set the prices. We get to do whatever we want to do as far as your business is concerned. You're just going to do it. You're just going to go along with it. And folks like myself might be inclined, or folks on the right might be inclined to say, okay, well, little do you know, the producers are going to have the last laugh. They're going to have the last say. But that's not even true when you see the kind of growth of such organizations as the WEF, where governments and corporations are coming together for the sake of power, to where they are, in a sense, using the marketplace as a kind of glorified gulag. So, I mean, it's interesting to see the direction in which we're going, because they are seizing the means of production before our very eyes.
Oh, absolutely. And just for this Daniel Price guy, he says free market is one thing, unfettered capitalism run amok is something else entirely. There's antitrust laws for a reason. First of all, I just want to say, I don't know if you've ever seen our show before, but we're not, we criticize Republicans who act like communists too, so we also, it's not, we don't believe that we don't believe in corporate welfare either, up and through here. Like we criticize those things as well. Now, certain things that, the government should have a say in when it's a private company, there are some things that where we know that these two entities might have to have some dealings with each other when it comes to regulations and stuff. But the level of regulation and what you would call unfettered capitalism that is happening today is out of control. And this idea did not just start in 1972. Did you not hear? I think it was Chad or Blanchard, one of them. Somebody already said that a president was ushering in these things in the 40s.
FDR.
ain't nobody talking about. We're not saying that these things just started happening. You're saying it started happening in 1972. These things started happening way before that. Communists have long infiltrated America. Okay, so I don't know. Like you seem new to the show.
Keisha, I'm sorry, Keisha. I gotta cut you off, Keisha. I'm sorry. Just real quick, that Daniel Price, when he says unfettered capitalism, I would love to know what he means by that, because I guarantee you, what he means by unfettered capitalism has nothing at all to do with the free market. So I don't even know what that means. I don't know what he means by that. I don't even know what the result of that is.
He's trying. I guarantee you, he's probably, because he goes on to say, "Oh, it's the greed, it's this and that," and I guarantee you, he's
because what he says, Keisha, he doesn't even understand that unfettered capitalism, and then on the same token, he talks about the government having antitrust laws for a reason. Unfettered capitalism prevents this kind of monopolization of industries. But I wonder if Daniel Price would be for the breaking up of the United Automobile Workers Union. Would he be in favor of that? I wonder. Because somehow unions, whole-scale unions from the NEA, the AFT, the UAW, and these institutions, these entities, these are examples of groups and organizations that violate federal antitrust laws. But we don't hear a thing about it from the left, because when you can control the price of labor across an entire industry, wow. But that doesn't seem to bother many people. It may bother Mr. Price. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I'm saying when you're talking about antitrust, it only applies to the big greedy capitalist corporations and so on and so forth, because it is expedient for a politician to use that sort of rhetoric, because they know that the mega wealthy, the mega rich among us are few and far between. And so this is why they galvanize the ignorant masses. This is the same stuff that Marx and Engels talked about. This is how you galvanize the proletariat in the working class. You make enemies, you make victims out of them, and then you make enemies out of the people who, of course, they actually rely upon in many instances for their daily bread. But no one wants to break up these national unions that dominate a whole scale of industries, a whole scale across many different organizations. Is that a violation of antitrust? To me, it is.
I wonder what he would say about Google, or what are you going to say about Apple, or what are you going to say about Facebook? All of these.
I'm just talking about the teachers. I'm just talking about these.
I know, but I'm just saying,
break up the unions.
There are literal monopolies, and ain't nobody talking about them. I would love to see Daniel Price. I want to see your history of being pissed off at Google. Please spare me.
You can't. If capitalism was because that's how it happens. You get this cartelism when those who have certain political connections can have the opportunity or have at their disposal certain government protections. When the government puts its finger on the scale in favor of one organization or one a business over another, because that particular business is willing to do the bidding of the state. So a lot of the times the state and its oppressive mechanisms are outsourced to these entities like Facebook, like Google, etc., etc. And so if we actually had quote unquote unfettered capitalism, you wouldn't have trust.
Company and told them not to show factual evidence against a United States president. Are you freaking kidding me? Because this dude, he also said, "Oh well, these corporations, their lobbyists." He's talking about the heritage. He is talking out of both sides of his neck. My point for you, Mr. Price, is when you're new to somebody's home, because you on the left, y'all don't have no decorum, and y'all don't have y'all be doing stuff all out of order, out of indecent. When you come to somebody's community, when you come to somebody's home, you might want to take a gander, just sit back and listen for a little bit before you start jumping in and being rude and just talking out of two sides of your face.
I don't know if he said anything else, Keisha. That comment wasn't particularly rude, unless you're referring to another comment that he made. But
I don't think that he understands what we think over here. I think he's assuming a lot of things about us that we're not.
He understands. You have to understand that the premise in which he's talking about is white people are bad. So that's the foundation. So anything that appears to be white, capitalism, corporations, structures, order, rules, all these things are bad. So when he's talking from a it's already bad standpoint.
Okay.
So we know during when Biden, they just the Supreme Court ruled that they could actually, tell the social media companies what they can do as far as information, whether they can censor certain information or whatever. And so he doesn't have a problem with that because everything he says is loud on social media. He can say America's racist, like all his talking points will never be infringed upon. He'll never be shadow banned. He'll never be demonetized. So he doesn't understand that the government having control over social media companies will eventually affect you down the long run. Like when they removed Trump from Twitter. And I told people, I said, that is a violation of free speech. Why? Because if Twitter said, listen, if we don't like what you say, we might kick you off. Nobody would have joined it. So everybody joined under the premise that you all were going to follow some kind of rules, but you didn't. And so again, this person, Daniel, was talking from a standpoint that everything that we've come to know about America is bad and it's wrong. The government is wrong. That's why I asked him, what form of government do you propose? Like, what's your solution? He never has a solution. I guarantee his solution will be some form of communism. Because think about it. His goal is to regulate what's already being done. So that means there'll be another government in place to regulate what's already being done right now. So again, I'd asked him, what is your solution? We got it wrong. Trump got it wrong. The Heritage Foundation got it wrong. Okay, give me the great solution to solve this problem in America. Who should lead America? And don't tell me let folks do what they want to do, because black folks with restraints are destroying the country. So we can't do that. So please give me a solution on what does America need to do so that we can all get along peacefully.
Well,
unfettered capitalism
anyway,
and
let's move
monopolies.
on.
Unfettered capitalism and monopolies. Those two things are incongruent. They're antithetical. You can't have. It just goes to show you're just using words and terms that you don't fully understand. Go ahead, Quisha. I'm sorry.
When Jesse Jackson Jr. was in Congress, a group of young folks came to him. Man, if you don't do this, and we gonna vote you out. Jesse Jr. said, y'all ain't gonna do a damn thing.
Yeah.
He said, you see that building right there? That's a high rise. He said, in that high rise are old people, and they mostly women. That's what I'm talking to. It's gonna be them seasoned saints.
Every time. Faithful. They faithful.
They gonna show up.
They gonna show up.
So when you like, hey, I need backup.
That's right.
You know it's gonna be 50, 60, 70 of them.
That's gonna show
with
up.
They gray hair.
That's exactly
and the
right.
walkers, and they like, Justin, baby, we here.
We hear what you need us to do.
And they're sitting there
So
bragging
if
about
y'all
that.
remember, that is Justin Pearson. He's from Tennessee. He was one of the congressmen who in his mind somewhere, he thinks he's like Martin Luther King returned.
Yeah, he's talking normal now.
Breaking his back and shana-da-da-da and all this other foolishness. And just made a complete fool of himself, in my opinion. Now he's sitting up there with another fool, Roland Martin, talking about how Jesse Jackson didn't care what y'all wanted. He didn't care what the young people wanted. He was going to go right to the gullible old black women, somehow basically trick them to vote, because everything that he's saying sounds real suspect. He got a whole building over here and all these women in here are going to be voting for him. That sounds real like election interference to me. But I don't know. I'm just
Well, they call it organizing.
But
they call it organizing.
Right.
They call it organizing. Is what they call it.
Right.
And I mean, the thing is, somebody called Justin Pearson the great value MLK, and they're absolutely right. I mean, folks, all the civil rights movement was. Sorry.
I was like, he the T-Move MLK. Go ahead.
Yeah. The off-brand, which isn't saying much because MLK was a fraud anyway. So, but the thing is, all the civil rights movement was a glorified community organizing scheme. That's basically what it is. And the thing is, everything that came out or came after it in the form of social justice was the same thing. I just finished reading Barack Obama's book, Dreams from My Father, where he talked about like after finishing school, he moved to Chicago to become a community organizer. And the fact is, there's a lot that went into making that decision. But the way that he recounts what happened, it's almost as if the idea just came to him one night, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna go to Chicago, and I'm gonna become a community organizer. So what he does is he moves to Chicago, and he meets with this. He tries to look for a job. He puts in applications for numerous social justice organizing firms and community organizing firms. And, you know, because Chicago is kind of a hotbed for community organizing in the wake of folks like Saul Alinsky and others. And there's a lot of prestigious community organizing firms there, one of which was a high-powered law firm that was engaged in the work of social justice and community organizing. And the lead attorney for this firm said, you know, what you've heard on your college campus is one thing, but the reality of it is in the real world, we have to work with Republicans, we have to work with Democrats, we have to work with pastors and priests and rabbis. We have to basically become all things to all people, and you have to be polished. And so this is why someone like you, a Harvard educated grad, is perfect, because you can go into a black church, but you can also go into a white dinner party and do your thing. And so Martin Luther King, the reason why he, I guess, is more effective than someone like a Kamala Harris is because he knows how to speak in such a way that you think he's saying something good and positive. You think that his ideas are beneficial, but the reality of it is it's just socialism that's with a pretty bow on it. Whereas Kamala Harris, she's not as polished, she's not as groomed, I would say, as someone like a Barack Obama. But my point is like when it comes to community organizing, that's what they were doing during the civil rights movement, and that's what they've been doing ever since then. What Roland Martin and Justin Pearson is talking about in that clip that Quisha just played is the same thing. Community organizing. We depend on dumb, and I hate to say it so harshly, but I mean, it is what it is. Dumb people who are just looking for a handout, who are just looking at what kind of instant gratification can I get out of this situation. And it's to that extent that these people are used and mobilized for political action, and they don't benefit from it in any long-term way. They are just ever useful to the demagogue, to the politician, to the community organizer who is trying to basically enact socialism from the ground up, from the local level, ultimately from there to the state level, and then ultimately from there to the federal level. Because we saw Barack Obama finished school, moved to Chicago, started out as a community organizer in the neighborhoods and the streets. From there, he was able to become a state senator, I believe. From there, he was able to become a senator in the House, in Congress. And then from there, he became the president. So again, it starts from the ground and it works incrementally up to the federal level, to the mass scale. And now we are in our situation where we are more socialist, where we have a bigger federal government in 2024 than we did in 2008 when Obama took office. And so that's the way that these things work. What Roland Martin and Justin Pearson is saying, it's easy to make fun of, but the fact is they're kind of right. They do have control over these people who are just being used as foot soldiers to help usher in a Marxian state.
Every time. Hey, Blanche, do you want to read the super stickers and chats, please?
First up is Cruise Missile. Thank you so much, Cruise Missile, for the super sticker. Always supporting. Jesus loves you. God bless Quisha, Chad, Chuck, Blanche in the chat. Thank you so much. Jesus loves you. Dion. Thanks, Chuck, for putting me on to Calvin Coolidge. Thanks, Chad, for putting me on to Grover Cleveland and William Taft. Thank you so much, Dion. 96 to life. Educate me, please. What exactly does a governmental structure in a constitutional republic look like? 1776. How much dismantling is necessary?
A lot.
Oh, my
like to
bad.
get
I
back
didn't know.
to the core of what this country was intended to be.
I mean, just quick to address this question about what is the Constitution like. I guess he's asking, like, I guess, what did it look like in 1776, or just overall, like what the concept means and what that kind of system looked like. I guess I'll just kind of address the latter. I mean, we do have certain democratic elements within our system. Of course, our system is, and I don't mean to seem as though I'm like talking down to anyone, because I think that a great bit of our audience sort of gets this, but maybe there may be some new people, who knows, who will see this at some point. But our system is it's vertically and horizontally integrated, right? And this is the whole premise of checks and balances, right? We talk about the co-equal branches of government. Democracy is like more so direct from people to policy, or what they call a direct democracy. When we talk about a constitutional republic or a representative republic, there's certain aspects of government that's more direct, and there are other aspects of government that are more representative. So, for example, if you look at the legislative body, and each body is meant to kind of mirror, the whole, the logos, the pathos, the ethos, and so on. Anyway, it's a whole esoteric thing. I don't really feel the need to kind of get into, right now. But yeah, so the people are represented by the House of Representatives, for example, and so the House represents what is the interest of the people, and the senators represent the interests of the states, and so on. And so it's meant to kind of have this to kind of play on a delicate balance between the people and a kind of, I don't necessarily want to say like a political aristocracy in a way, because I know that kind of have some negative implications there, maybe some negative connotations. But the whole idea was to not have it to where the people could act as a spontaneous referendum, if you will, on everything that displeased them. Because they knew, of course, that would regress us back to where we didn't want to be. And it would simply calls for an ongoing, this kind of ceaseless revolution. And what the founders wanted was a country that was in fact stable. And it's somewhat of it's a fair question, it's a good question. It's somewhat of a loaded question, because there's a lot to talk about and there's a lot to unpack. But simply put, the idea is to not have one element of government on any level carrying an outsized amount of sway over people spatially far removed from its governing jurisdiction. Even if it did have governing jurisdiction over it, the idea was to keep the government relatively small, to go from the bottom up, and so on. So it's just, and then to have, when I say horizontal integration, we're talking about the self-interested branches competing against one another. So it's a lot. But what the left did effectively was take this idea of a diffused kind of power, diffused decision making, and they sought to concentrate it at the federal level, particularly at the within the executive branch and the illegitimate fourth branch of government, which is the kind of the vestigial kind of, what's the word, that the illegitimate, the growth, right? It's like the tumor, that cancerous growth onto the executive body, where their peoples and their activists and whatnot can live on for in perpetuity, which is again was not the idea of the founders. And so it's a very loaded question, but a fair one. I just wanted to kind of gently address it, because it's worth talking about, because I don't think a lot of people know that Black folks, especially, because of course to them, everything is meant to perpetuate white supremacy. So,
thank you so much for that, Chuck. Blanche, can you
yes.
finish this?
Willie, Doc, thank you all so much for the truth. Trolling seems to increase the more you all educate, and Chad digging the top gun maverick look. Dayon, a lot of Black Americans are psychotic. All those Black exploitation pimp movies, and they don't realize it. That's the relationship with the state. True. Daniel Price, this is really to me, not you, Chad, but Chad O. Jackson, you can't really call someone a coward when you ask a generalized question in a vague, broad manner. Then time someone out when they call you on it. That's a punk move and cowardly. Sub-Zero, what up, people? Let me get in on a Sunday chat.
What that he said? You said, Blanche. You said he was talking to you when he put that in there.
Yeah.
What is he talking about? Do you know what he's talking about?
Yeah. I asked him. I said, I asked him what I said, are you in favor of government mandates?
Oh, okay.
And then he said, well, which mandates? And then so I had to read. Then he wouldn't answer. He started saying, well, he said probably 2025 is a mandate. I said, that's not a mandate. That's just literature. That's not a mandate.
He did not say that.
Yes,
he didn't.
did.
He said that Project 2025 is a mandate.
Yeah, he said.
Like right now, it's a mandate.
Yeah, it's a mandate. And so,
There's your public schooling for you.
All right, moving on.
Wanted to quickly address. So Sub-Zero said that he wants to get in on a Sunday, and I have a few folks in mind as far as like, substituting whenever myself, Blanche, Quisha, or Chuck are not able to make it on a Sunday, because we all have lives and stuff too. But one of the things that I want to start doing, and I just got to figure out the technology for it before long, is trying to roll in phone calls for like the last 30 minutes of the show. But that would have to be obviously in the future, because we're a year and a half in, and we're still trying to figure out this whole cutting through the culture thing. So, so yeah, that's something eventually that I'd like to do.
Sounds good to me.
Yes.
Matt Blaylock, beautiful economic breakdown. Shout out to Von Mises.
Oh, I wish, man. But I appreciate it though, man. To be mentioned alongside Von Mises, that's a compliment. Thank you, man.
Chuck
from that smart.
Chuck WW in the chat wants to know your credentials. He doesn't understand yet.
I don't know. WW. I don't know who that is.
Chuck, you're not qualified to speak on these matters. You're not accepted by the Academy.
You're not Roland Martin. You're not Roland Martin.
Right.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking
about. David Lyons, isn't Project 2025 about centralized government?
You could do is laugh, right?
I mean, okay, so let me address this just briefly. Isn't Project 2025 about a centralized government? No, fool. Didn't you hear earlier when we were talking, and I said, what did I say? You made me forget what I was saying.
You said it didn't go far enough. Like you said, it wasn't. It
didn't go far enough. Basically, just to reiterate, pick up a book, right? Go to Half Price Books, look on the internet. I mean, you have this is a supercomputer, right? This has a lot of information in it, and I can share some websites with you, some archive websites, if you're really interested, or if you're just trying to troll. I don't know what to do for you, but when you look at the Great Depression and how Congress reacted to it in terms of vesting, particularly FDR, with this unfettered power, that is centralized government. That is basically the Congress acting unilaterally, and the federal government or the executive branch acting unilaterally. There's a lot of damage that has come off the back of what Congress did in response to the Great Depression, and then every public crisis that has happened since then. And Chuck can probably, or not probably, I know he can speak to this better than I can, but every crisis, you'll remember Rahm Emanuel, the former mayor. Yeah, the former mayor of Chicago never let a good crisis go to waste. This is what they do. This is what they do.
Correct.
Right now, they're trying to instill or entice this fear in you of climate change, not to make your life easier, but to allow you or to compel you to vest it with even more power than it already has. And you're falling for it like a fool because you are so easily manipulated by the propaganda. And so my hat goes off to folks like, those at the Heritage Foundation, because they're trying to pull some of that power back to the people. But you're so foolish and so naive that you think that it's the opposite of that. But don't take my word for it. Again, do your research. I mean, I hate to say it or put it like that because that's what the left, oh yeah, you go do your homework. But genuinely, go do your homework before you get up here and embarrass yourself like this. What a mess.
It's kind of in the name, though, centralized government. If everything is central, everything is it's garnered together. It's all one mass thing. How do the people who are outside of this, and we get it on camera, here is the centralized thing, right? And all of the people are down here. How are the people supposed to get the power to, how are they supposed to protect their rights if it's all massed in this one thing? Like centralized government, it's all in one. So you don't have a co-equal branch of government anymore. You don't have checks and balances anymore. You don't have one, the Senate challenging or pushing back on Congress. You don't have the Supreme Court pushing back on the president and Congress and Senate. You don't have we the people pushing back on all four. It's when it's centralized, it's all in one thing. It's kind of in the name. I don't know.
Let me tone it down a little bit. Forgive me for calling you a fool. I repent of that. Because you could have been asking the question genuinely, and even if you weren't, I mean, it's beneath me to go off like that. But here's in all seriousness, when it comes to again attempts like Project 2025, and there's been other attempts to try to, in a sense, to slow the expansion of the administrative state. That's basically what they're trying to do with Project 2025. There's some things in it that I don't agree. There's a lot that I don't agree with in it. But I'm not going to go so far as to align or agree with those who are afraid of it. But I see it as an incremental step. What I said earlier about taking advantage of crisis, this is what they do. This is what the powers that be do. They didn't invest all this time and this energy and the social sciences, the cognitive sciences, the political sciences for nothing. They did it on purpose. They did it for a reason. The whole goal is to get, like, we don't live in a monarchy, and I make this point all the time. We don't live in a monarchy. We live in a constitutional republic, which means that the people have a say in the direction or the trajectory in which our country moves. And so the powers that be, understanding the setup of our republic, know that they can't move forward. They can't pull off what they wish to pull off unless they have the consent of the people on their side. This is the very reason why they invest so much time and energy into shaping public opinion. They do so through social justice, but they also do so through the manufacturing of crisis and chaos, because they understand that people react whenever they are afraid. So whenever you turn on the news and you see all the news channels singing to a singular chorus, talking about you should be afraid, be very afraid of this. You should be afraid, be very afraid of that. You should be afraid, be very afraid of that. Whether it be racism, climate change, sexism, this, that, and the other, they're not bringing attention to these issues because they care about you. You can bet your bottom dollar that what they're trying to do is to move you and to entice you to be supportive of ensuing legislation, of ensuing public policy, because they understand that to the extent that they gain your consensus, that they gain your permission, you will be all the willing to support the politician who's advocating for the policies that they say will help alleviate the crisis that is at hand. And this is exactly what Kamala Harris is doing. These people are the real reactionaries. They make the issue, they manufacture the crisis, and then they say we have the answers to alleviate it. And so this is all propaganda. This is all Machiavellian-esque politics that we're seeing here. And so again, when you say, well, isn't Project 2025 just the centralized government? Like, no, I don't know how else to break it down, but again, just think a little bit clearly about these things. Is all I'm saying. I'm not trying to be condescending, but I don't know. I guess I just don't know how else to break it down. So, well,
I'm gonna just say this: these people aren't confused about what this stuff is. They aren't confused when they come on here. They're trying to combat what's being said. So what he really wants to say is Project 2025 is racist. I mean, it just is what it is. These people don't have any counter thoughts or any kind of intellect when it comes to these. They don't. Their mind's already made up. They've already shaped the sheet when it comes to Project 2025. And it's sad. It doesn't matter what we say. Most of these people don't care because they trust the people that are telling them the lies. So they trust Joe Biden. They trust Kamala Harris. They trust AOC. They trust Roland Martin. They trust these people. So it doesn't matter what we say. It doesn't matter if we show it to. I had one guy one time, I showed him the BLM website where they showed their mission statement. He said he didn't believe it. I said, but this is their website. I don't believe it. I'm like, well, I mean, what can you do? It's what it is. I mean, so I just think that these people, they're intellectually, they're just dishonest. And so when they come over here and ask these questions aren't really good faith questions. They're questions, they're almost statements in a question, like rhetorical questions. They're not real. They're not real. They come on.
Maybe so, but I mean, I guess for me, I'm going to give this person the benefit of the doubt because here's the thing. Those of you who are in the comment section, we do get a lot of trolls, and so sometimes it's difficult to decipher those who are being disingenuous and those who are asking like legitimate questions. And so that's why I'm saying, forgive me for just popping off like that, because I don't know what your intentions are. And I don't want our, people in our comment section to be afraid to ask questions or think that anytime they ask a question, we're just going to pop off on them. So for that reason, again, forgive me. I repent of that, because the thing is like, I mean, if nothing else, it is an opportunity to speak to a kind of prevailing narrative, a propagandized narrative that's being put out there. Oh, be afraid of 2025 because they're trying to usurp power. They're trying to empower the government at the expense of the American people. That's the narrative that's going out there. And I want to try to do my best to articulate the fact that that's actually not the case. So whether you're asking that question disingenuously or whether you're asking it legitimately, nevertheless, it is an opportunity to try to clear the air. And so again, it's not like me to just pop off, but you know, I want to try to answer people's questions regardless of the I guess posture they're coming and asking it. But yeah, no. The fact is, what the left is doing when they say that Project 2025 is an attempt to try to centralize the government, they're gaslighting. Is basically what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay, and so it just as Chad took responsibility and accountability, you as a guest on the show, if you have a question about Project 2025 and we've talked about it for 2 hours, your conclusion shouldn't be centralized government. I'm sorry. I just can't buy it. You can't listen to us breaking it down that you never heard the breakdown before at all because you've only heard the media talking about it. The problem I see is that you all are getting this information, and instead of listening, what you're doing is you're critiquing what the speaker is saying instead of listening. To me, you don't have the right to do that because you don't know anything. You're coming here to learn. These hosts are respectful to you all, and they're very understanding and accommodating. So again, if we're talking about Project 2025 and we're talking about it in an in-depth fashion, you don't need to then turn around and say, I thought it was centralized government. You just wiped out 2 hours of what we were saying before. So again, if you all want respect, come into this chat being intellectually honest. Listen and then have a legitimate question. You just say centralized government after you know we just talked about what Project 2025 actually really was. I don't believe you're doing it to be genuine because you know what we're talking about. You know the stance of this podcast and everything. So again, Chad said that he will treat you all with respect and fairness. So I want you all to do the same. Don't ask a silly question. This is not kindergarten. Ask a legitimate question about something you don't understand You get a legitimate answer. This is not the Shade Room. This is not Hollywood
Right.
Unlocked. This ain't CNN. This ain't. It's not. We're going to respect you over here. So respect the intellect of these people. These people put a lot of time and effort into these shows and what they learn. People are reading books. Just imagine these folks have read all these books, all this knowledge and information, and here you come. Is it about centralized government? No. If you don't know, be quiet and listen, or ask someone in the chat. Many folks in the chat know what's going on, but don't want to highlight a question or something like that. You highlighted your question. You didn't ask it. You made it a highlight. So again, all I'm saying is respect the host, and you will be respected.
Yeah. Quisha, I sent you what I sent you. I didn't know if we would be able to put it up on the screen. But if not, never mind.
Do you have any more supers to get through?
Yeah,
or
let me
is that
finish this. Kyle Huguet, this is a great conversation. I'm actually learning something today. Well done. Khalil, another great show. My CTTC family, God bless you, Chuck, Quisha, Blanche, and Chad. Keep up the great work. This show is very important and a historical reference of the truth. Thank you so much, Khalil. Todd from the UK. I couldn't put a name on it, so thank you, Chad, for clarifying what has been going on, which is global Marxism. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. It has been Trojan horse everywhere. Thank you, Todd. You see how they did that?
Isn't it?
02122, great show per usual, guys. BT, by the way, Chad, I seen you cruising down the street in your 6-4 earlier. Jarrell, thank you for the super sticker. Baked turkeys. The federal government essentially already rules through an unfettered fourth branch of government called the federal agencies, bureaucracies that no one voted for. 2025 is aimed at getting those agencies in line and excites them from the government.
Exercise them. Yeah, and that's what we've been saying for a couple weeks. Baked turkeys. Yeah, great point. And like I said, and it's a point that we've been making over the last couple of weeks, especially when the left with this whole talking point about Donald Trump and conservatives and Republicans more broadly being against democracy. Again, democracy is this synonym that they use to describe whatever they believe is politically or socially preferable to whatever it is that we have now, because most folks don't honestly know what democracy means. It's a very loaded term, even though we kind of throw the term around very loosely. But the exact opposite to your point is in fact true. When they say that we are a threat to democracy, we are a threat to politics as usual, as the old saying goes. We are a threat to the way the progressives believe that we should go about doing things. And so we're a threat to the status quo, and that's what they mean by a threat to democracy. We are a threat to their illegitimate rule. That is this fifth column in our country, the administrative state. You're right.
This is a comment for Chuck. He tries to explain what the government was like in 1776, and he spouted a bunch of word salad, didn't answer anything. So this is the guy WW that you all were questioning who he was before. This is what I mean when I say about these people asking these questions. This is what they really think. This is why I say the questions aren't really questions. They're just rhetorical.
All right.
I think the guy who asked the question about the centralized government was a different person, though.
No, it is. No, it is. It is different person. It is.
Was that a super chat, Blanche?
No, I just saw.
Oh, I'm about to say thanks for the money.
I just saw it. Oh, just like, because somebody was trying to tell him that he wasn't listening to you, and he was like, he did listen, but
no, just he doesn't get it. This is beyond him. He has to go through a few more steps, I guess, first before he can reach this level. Before he can get here.
He's still in coloring book mode.
He's still learning shapes and colors, so he doesn't get it.
Wait, Chad, how you gonna repent and then?
No, because that person, Chad was right. That person may have just been asking in good faith, because they may have been, they may have misjudged. They may not have known exactly what the Project 2025 thing was all about, and so maybe they were under the impression. that it was
Well, the
about
thing is,
centralized government. Perhaps they did come in late, but that right there is just not. It's not the same thing. What WW just said, it's not the same thing.
I
the thing
agree.
is though, Keisha, I'm not soft. I'm not a
completely insane.
pushover. Like, I mean, I'm
Mhm.
going to respect people, and again, like I don't. I mean, with my own kids, like they ask a lot of silly questions all the time, and you know,
Mhm.
you use discernment to determine whether they're asking a question in good faith or whether they just genuinely want to know. And
Right.
so I don't want my kids to feel like they can't come to dad and ask questions. So so that's really where that was coming from. I mean, I'm not saying that people in the comment section are my kids. I'm just saying like
No, that was some you was sonning them now. You was sonning them. You my son.
nah.
And shout out and like say at WW 96 to life, he asked a question and he said that I answered his question just fine. So yeah, maybe after the show, you and I 96 to life, maybe y'all can compare notes or something. Maybe y'all remember you used to do that back in the day. You know, you used to maybe get a study group or something since you don't get it. Like I said, I openly admitted that to break down the representative republic or representative republic, constitutional republic. I mean, I don't have time on this show to walk through Greek and Roman history for you, sir. I know you're not there, you don't get it, you don't understand, but that's why I say that this is levels to this, and I don't want to just come right in the middle of the story, and because you're going to be lost. And so I don't have time to go through and walk through what the concept and the idea of a republic is, a representative republic versus a direct democracy, more so in line with what the Greeks had during the days of the Greek city-state. I don't have time to go into all of that because it's a lot of information, but I know my homeboy 96 to life, he has a good sense of what's going on, so I can come at him on that level because much of the story he already understands, unlike you.
Keisha, I haven't heard from you in a while. What are your thoughts on this?
On the comment, people?
No, just the things that Blanche, Chuck, and I have been talking about for the past 15 minutes.
Oh, well, I mean, I have a lot of respect for you guys. And so if you're talking about something that I don't know, what I typically do is write it down and then go back later. Or if you're talking about something in the moment and I don't understand, like, and I want to ask a question, I will, guess what I do? I Google. It's this little thing, you Google real quick just to kind of check, okay, am I understanding? Maybe I don't know. Okay. If it's too much for me to kind of consume at the moment, I'll go back to it. But I think what we're dealing with in the chat is indicative of what we're talking about as a whole and what we've been talking about of just Americans' lack of want to go and dig for themselves and not be like spoon-fed every single thing. And it wasn't until that speaking of children, that I stopped doing that with my children. That's when they actually grew up, when I made them go and look up stuff for themselves, when I made them think for themselves and didn't give them the answer and didn't spoon feed everything. That was the moment when they actually started to take responsibility, take more initiative. The love for learning and curiosity actually came back. Because a funny thing, when you give somebody something, whether it be information, whether it be money, whether it be resources, the human being stops wanting to work for it, and you diminish something within that human being. And that's why the left essentially is so dangerous, is because in their mind they're going to go against God's nature that he is, that we have in this fallen world, that we are as human beings, or we can say God's nature, or the curse of man, where man is right now. This lack of wanting to, do something and be something and progress, and not in the leftist kind of way, but, make something of yourself, to be producers, to be learners and stuff. If somebody's just going to give it to you, why work? But it diminishes something within you that is dangerous, because when you don't want to work, when you don't want to, figure out what's going on around you, when you're so lazy that you don't even want to pick up a book, you can't even Google, you're literally sitting on you can't even Google it to see.
And that's the truest form of education, isn't it, Quisha? Basically, teaching your children how to be resourceful. I mean, when I was coming up, we were taught to show our work. Like we had to show our work, show how we came to that conclusion. We couldn't just put the answer down. We had to show how we got to that answer. Even in English class, I mean, we had to cite our sources and showing how we came, you know, how we construed an opinion or a conclusion on a given subject. You had to cite your sources. And it's mathematics, English. We were taught to have command of the English language. I mean, public school is not that way today, but I mean, there were some remnants of it left when I was coming up in the 90s and the 2000 early 99s and the 2000s. But
you got some
little Easter eggs in there. So, but the thing is though, what do y'all think? And this is for all three of y'all. Of this thing that, and I hear a lot of Republicans say it too, but I hear folks on the left with respect to education that, oh, we want to teach children how to think, not what to think. What do y'all think of that idiom?
Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Go ahead, Keith.
I will forever be suspect of any howing to think when it comes from a public institution. Like, because when you're teaching someone how to think, if it's a child and if you don't probe them in the right way, and if you can be completely not hands-on in helping them to get to the right conclusion, but also not giving them the answer, it's not as easy as we like to say, you know, teaching someone how to think. When I was going through this with my own children, it was you have to be able to let them fail. You have to kind of sit back. You have to have a kind of a hands-off approach. And I don't trust a government anything with young people. I think so I would be very suspect when
I guess I'm talking more or less I'm not restricting my question to public education. I'm talking about education in general. The parents' job or role to educate their children and in terms of home economics, in terms of decency, and in terms of resourcefulness, in terms of the order of the world, what their place in the world is. Again, there's this concept of, oh, I don't want to teach my kids what to think. I want to teach them how to think. What do y'all think of that idiom or of that notion?
You
in some cases, you do want to teach your kids what to think.
Yeah,
you do.
I was going to say that's a popular thing for people to say, that you want to teach them how to think, but you don't want to, and you want to teach them how to think, not what to think, and that's a popular thing. And Chad is right when he says that, even because I myself have even heard conservatives say that, but this falls in line completely with the Marxification of our educational system. This idea that we don't want to teach kids what to think. Because when you teach a kid what to think, of course, then they become agents of this corrupt system. And so this is what the whole, emotional and social learning kind of thing is all about, to have the children to have their own personal experiences become, to put their personal experiences at the forefront. And the job of the teacher or the educator is simply to kind of facilitate their wayward imaginations, so as to use that kind of cognitive deficiency, if you will. It's an advantage in this case in terms of the Marxist educator, who can then infuse a critical consciousness upon this blank slate that is the child. And so this is what they do, and this is how they create these minions. By kind of blurring the line of distinction between adult and child, because in their minds, every single solitary child, even in the case of, say, for example, the queer ideology. This is something that I want to get into when we talked about the Board of Education. That's why I sent Quisha the screenshot that I sent her. She probably won't be able to put it up on the screen. But these educators believe, and Marx believed the same thing. This is why the queer ideology is simply queer Marxism, or, you know, this is kind of like that particular, I guess, iteration of this whole march of deconstruction, right? It isn't so much that Marx believed that he could create a kind of a new sort of man, and I know we like to say that, but to be more specific, or to be more in line with what Marx actually taught, Marx believed the same way in which Rousseau believed that man was essentially born perfect, and it is all of the trappings and the auxiliary pieces that takes him away from his true nature. And so man, given the current state of the division of labor, becomes isolated or alienated from that which he produces, which in turn is supposed, or should I say, what man produces is meant to reflect upon him his own creative agencies, so as to evoke this sense within him that he is in fact the author of all things around him. So all things in the universe come into existence by way of man's own conscious. Therefore, the universe is simply composed of all things of man. So what Marx wanted to do was dumb society back down to the point where man once again became central to all things in the universe, that man was the center of all consciousness. When he creates something, he becomes alienated from that thing. Thus, that thing, like Frankenstein, then has dominion over him because he becomes subservient to the thing that he creates. But the thing that he creates is meant to remind him of who he truly is, which is the author of all things. Again, it is essentially Hegelian mixed with a lot of Eastern and occult mysticism, because at its core, leftism is a Gnostic cult. And I won't get into, because that's not so much the topic of the show, but I wanted to bring all that up to say, and it goes back to the whole thing with, for example, why in the heck are they pushing all of this drag queen, all of this stuff, you know? Okay, so that's from, I don't know if you could, that's from the Board of Education, for those of you out there who want to say, well, oh my goodness, Trump is going and the Republicans are trying to destroy the Department of Education. Well, this is the type of stuff that the Department of Education is pushing, because like Marx would say, essentially, human beings we are socialist by nature. That is our nature as human beings, is to be these socialist creatures, to be these communal creatures. And the advent of private property in the Marxian theology was the beginning of the original sin. The original sin was the creation of private property, which turned man into an individual and moved him away from his natural predilection, which is that of a social creature. So we're not getting to the end so much as we are getting back to the beginning, because everything that exists needed to be negated, needed to be broken down and stripped away so we can get back to what we used to be. We do not know what, and this is Marxian. Marx would suggest that we don't know what should be, but we certainly know what shouldn't be. And so we cannot create in a positive sense, but we can create in a negative sense, in that we can ruthlessly criticize what we believe should not be. And it is through this negation process that we will reach this sort of the kind of perfection of the utopia that we talk about, again, when we talk about communism, because essentially all human beings are in fact social. Just like the queer Marxist activists believe that essentially all children are queer. Mm-hmm. They just have to have the negative influence. And this goes back to Chad's question. We need to have the negative influence of a socializing society that normalizes, when you hear the term heteronormativity, right? Or cisgender. These are arbitrary control mechanisms, these control conventions that are meant to, again, isolate man from his true nature, which is in fact this kind of queer, because essentially all humanity is we are androgynous on a soul level, and the body is simply the prison to the soul. And again, this is why I say that leftism is a cult, it is a Gnostic cult that is founded upon hermetic principles that again, these aren't the sort of talks you hear in political circles, but again, this is what the left believes. And so to Chad's question, this is why they'll tell you that, yeah, I'm not trying to socialize them up in the way that I want them to go, as far as how to be productive citizens and how to be more. They don't want that, because that is the grooming the child for this prison that is this life that, again, alienates them from their true selves, from who they are on the inside, whether it be I am sexually androgynous, or whether I am naturally this kind of communist who wants to share, and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, this is why they don't believe it. They surely don't want you telling your children what they should know. They want to be the ones to do that, because again, they want to infuse or inject this critical consciousness into the minds of your children.
And when you don't, you get this.
I'm so happy to be here, Atlanta. We're about to make history with the first female president. The first black female president. Let's get this done, Hottie. Hottie for Harris.
So somebody mentioned what's the difference between telling your child what to think and teaching your child how to think. I think that it's more beneficial to teach your child how to think, how to, as the Bible says, study to show thyself approved, because that allows them to always find out for themselves. If what is being taught to them is true or not. I think the problem is that we don't teach people how to think at all. We teach people how to memorize, how to regurgitate. We don't teach people how to actually think when they get information or they see something. So, for example, like what Meg Thee Stallion right there, now ask somebody to think about that. Now, aside from being entertained, aside from the music, aside from Kamala Harris, what are you actually looking at? Think about what you're actually looking at. You're looking at a woman who sells sex for a living, telling you to vote for a woman because she'll let you have an abortion. That's literally what the whole thing was about. And so,
and she'll trans and gay your sons. And
if they make it out the womb, yes. If they make it out the womb, they'll be trans. Right. But my point is, if you actually think about what's being done, you have a different opinion of it. Versus if I tell you that it's just wrong, like the whole thing is wrong. The child may say, well, how is it wrong? All my friends like it. The TV saying it's right. Everybody saying it's good. So the child would just maybe even rebel. I don't know, maybe even rebel against it. But to me, there is an art to thinking. And I think that we don't teach people how to think. Like, how do you compare and contrast? How do you analyze? How do you see if something is like, how does this measure up? Does this make sense? Can you actually run a test simulation? Like, all that stuff matters when it's in these times, because what they're feeding us, it all sounds good. It sounds good for women to have rights over their bodies. It sounds good to be able to vote. It sounds good to make the owners of businesses not price gouge. Like, all this stuff sounds good. It sounds good to, save the world from climate change. Like, all this stuff sounds good. So how are you going to get your child to say it's not good? To merely tell your child it's not good is not going to be good enough. You got to teach them how to think about what's being said. And so,
by the time your child, sorry, Blanche.
Go ahead.
By the time your child gets older, it'll be something new. Like, they won't even be talking about that anymore. They'll be talking about the new thing. But are they going to be able to see through the new thing that the devil is presenting? If you don't teach, here's the crazy part. If you don't teach your children how to think, when the enemy is, you know, politically rising because the Antichrist is a political figure, are they going to be one of these people that will be deceived? Are
Well, the
you
thing,
going to be one of the people that will be deceived? You know, because the delusion and the deceit is going to be so strong. It already is strong. And you know, it's strong, but it's weak because the people are so, it's not like they're dealing with, no shade, but most of these people who believe these kinds of things, they're not thinking people. They haven't bothered to pick up a book or anything like that. So it's the deception. It don't even have to really, you know, it doesn't have to be met. It doesn't have to be strong deception because the people that they're deceiving are not thinkers. They're not like, they're going to go along anyway. So you risk you risk your children, your future, your legacy being caught up in this deception if you don't teach them how to think, and if you yourself don't know how to think. So you can, even if you are you know, you want to criticize the Republicans and all Republicans are bad and all the whites are racist. Okay, all right, cool. But at some point, what if you are being like, what if that's not true? Like, are you one of these people that's going to be able to decipher the truth? What if everything flips and the parties switch, or, you know, white people can be black people nowadays?
these things are ever changing, and these things are ever changing and ever moving, and that's why you have to have discernment. And so here's a simple fact: the idiom is false. The concept is false. The reality of it is it's both and. Teach your children what to think and how to think. Just to put it in as simple terms as I possibly can, we know, according to the scriptures, that fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. And so it is my duty as a dad, as a father, to encourage my kids and to lead my kids to subordinate themselves to the fact of Christ as Lord. That means that they don't call the shots. That means that they aren't thrown to and fro by the whims of their own thinking and the whims of their own desires and passions, but rather, no, subordinate yourselves to the fact of Christ as Lord, because his word is life, right? His word is like food. It's better than food. We know that from the scriptures as well. And so in Christ, and when I'm pursuing him and subordinating myself to the fact of him as Lord, I'm a better dad. I'm a better dad when I'm following Christ than when I'm not. I'm a better husband when I'm following Christ than when I'm not. I'm a better business owner when I'm following Christ than I'm not. Every facet of life and culture in which I find myself, I am better at doing those things when I'm following Christ as Lord, because I have discernment and wisdom to navigate those things. And so he shapes my thinking and he orders my steps. Obviously, I'm a fleshly being, and so I slip, I fall, I make mistakes, I go against the Spirit. But thankfully, I have an intercessor who advocates for me to God as his right hand. And so really, again, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. That's how you think. What you think is equally important, because if you're not being taught what to think, you are opening a door for heresy and false gospels and misconception and misrepresentation and manipulation and all the rest that goes along with it. I mean, all the propaganda that we saw in the opening montage. If you are someone who is an unconscious consumer of narrative, unconscious consumer of spin, unconscious consumer of propaganda, unconscious consumer of culture, then you're just going to be, again, thrown to and fro. But whenever you're rooted in Christ, he gives you the discernment and the wisdom to see the lie, especially to the extent that it's contradictory or hostile to the gospel or hostile to the truth. Again, his word is life. And that's what we must subordinate ourselves to. Whenever, and the thing is, we have to teach our children, again, about the authority of God's word, the inerrancy of God's word, because whenever they are following that and reading that, that teaches you how to think and also what to think, and you'll be better off because of it. And so I don't think it's a question of either or. I think it's both and.
I got a question for you, Chad. Because I mentioned this, then I sent the screenshot to Quisha. She wasn't able to blow it up. And I said this earlier too, I think in my opening statement. I mean, you ask a lot of blacks, again, even a lot of pro-black Republicans, like we talked about on this show. And when it comes to certain things as the civil rights movement and everything that was created as a result of the civil rights, and to Chad's credit, man, I know some people may, most people aren't, though I can guarantee you that, are fed up with Chad continuing to harp on the Civil Rights Act of 1964, but it was arguably the most destructive legislation in American history. It almost started our country over from scratch, figuratively, but I mean, it was that destructive. I brought up earlier the UN and their comprehensive sexuality education. That this was developed in the early 2000s by the offshoot of the UN, UNESCO, as part of their 2030 sustainability agenda. This is all the stuff that we talk about. The comprehensive sex education is part of the 2030 sustainability agenda. There's two institutions in particular I haven't written down here. One, of course, is Planned Parenthood. And I always forget the name of the other one. It's called the Sexuality Information and Education Council of the United States. Yes, that's a real thing. And when people like this idiot, Charlemagne the Fraud, and I'll call him an idiot, when he said what he said to that caller, there's a certain thing called matching funds. Okay, because of course, the school districts, a lot of their funding, of course, is subsidized by the federal government. And a huge part of the reason why you have a lot of local politicians they refuse the purse, because I think many of them believe that it would be political suicide, of course, not to take the cash from the federal government, but that cash comes with stipulations. That cash comes with what's the word I'm looking for? Stipulations, if you will. And so you have to write strings. Exactly, Quisha. You have to do as the federal government tells you to do. And in this case, more specifically, the Department of Education, whose members and paper pushers are getting their marching orders from organizations like UNESCO and the United Nations to push the sexual queering and perversions upon your children. And it is to the extent that all of your local school districts do not abide by these orders, if you will, they will be subject to legal action. And these legal actions are carried out by ding dong, the Office of Civil Rights, because a lot of the LGBTQ agenda falls in line, right, with a lot of the 1964 civil rights legislation, Title VII, Title IX, et cetera, and shout out to Neil Gorsuch, which is one of the most terrible things that I'm still to this day. I don't think I'll ever look at Neil Gorsuch the same. But you guys need to look into the 2020 Bostock versus Clayton County of Georgia Supreme Court decision, for which Neil Gorsuch wrote the majority opinion. It was a disgrace of a judgment. This is a Trump nominated Supreme Court judge. It was a Chad shaking his head. He knows about it. I mean, a disgrace. And of course, it was, according to the majority, that this fell under Title VII protection of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And so how I had a question for Chad, because I think about when you had a debate of sorts with Delano Squires, and he made the point to say, well, there is no way. And then many of other people have said this as well, that there is no way that Dr. King and other civil rights leaders would be in favor of, for example, this completely insane to any rational person LGBTQ agenda. You can't say Dr. King is largely responsible for this, because come on now. I mean, Dr. King, he would think this was crazy, wouldn't he? He wouldn't. So my question to Chad was, how culpable do you think the social justice movement of the 60s, led by MLK, How responsible are they? Because again, we're still feeling the effects. And how many black folks who are now saying, well, we ain't vote for Kamala, she fake, she phony, she ain't really black. Maybe we need to give the Republicans another chance. I don't know if these same people would be against, for example, the Civil Rights Act, not knowing, not realizing that it is that particular legislation that is protecting the rights of these so-called queer individuals. So it's just a whole mess.
Well, Chuck, you and I both know that King wasn't a man of principles. He was an opportunist, is what he was.
Right.
And he was a Marxian ideologue.
Right.
And he knew how to play his role. He knew how to play his part. When you look at Bayard Rustin, who wrote a lot of his speeches, who was his advisor, Bayard Rustin himself was part of the Communist Youth and never left the Communist Party. I mean, he may have left on paper, but the reality is he never renounced any kind of passions or affection toward communist ideology. And he carried that into his relationship with MLK and even to his very death. I mean, you know that he said that, now in this phase of the civil rights movement, gays are the new niggers. Right. And so respectfully, Delano Squires is just wrong. He just is. If Martin Luther King was alive today, he'd be doing the same thing as what's the fat guy who is the leader of the Poor People's Campaign, the Reverend something or another, William something. Anyway,
with the curly hair.
Yeah.
From Atlanta.
What are you talking about?
He's an Indian. He's an Indian, Indian and black. That's why he has good hair. But the thing is, he's the leader of the Poor People's Campaign. He's up there talking about LGBT rights and queer rights and trans rights. And Al Sharpton is saying the same things. Jesse Jackson is saying the same things. Like all of these people who stand on the shoulders of Martin Luther King, and many of whom were actually good friends with Martin Luther King, are embracing wholesale the communist Marxian liberal agenda. What makes you think that Martin Luther King would be principled enough to say, I can't go that far? No, he would be right there with them. Who are we kidding? And then, of course, Delano said, well, people change. Look at who did he point to? Eldred Cleaver. He said, look, he was a Black Panther and he later became a Latter-day Saint and he died a Republican. What does that mean?
He was out of control.
What does that mean?
He was out of control.
Cleaver was a very unstable man. Even after the days of the Black Panther Party, they say he did become a Mormon for a time. He went on to, I know he joined the Sun Myung Moon's church, and I mean he did a lot by the early 2000s. Both he and Geronimo Pratt were being sued by Elaine Brown, because they were claiming that it was in fact Elaine Brown who was the longtime rat, close to the throne, if you will. And it was, Elaine Brown who was actually working for the CIA, and it was Elaine Brown who got Bunchy Carter assassinated and all this and that. But she claimed that, of course, they only were doing that because they were trying to garner political support for Cynthia McKinney. Of course, this is a Eldridge Cleaver who goes from being a conservative to all of a sudden he's stomping for Cynthia McKinney. And if you all don't know who Cynthia McKinney is, just look her up. So Marxist. Huge Marxist. So,
what was that decision that you said? What was the court decision?
Bostock, Bostock, Bostock versus
But my point in attempting to answer your question, Chuck, is the thing, like, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is gradualism and incrementalism. The Martin Luther King and civil rights movement took advantage of the fact that you had captive audiences as far as churches are concerned, and they saw churches as a kind of launching pad for this movement, because churches have a kind of built-in aura of respectability, of decency. And if you can use the church, something that's seemingly innocent, to push a radical movement, you are more likely to get people to go along with it as opposed to starting something in a college campus, which, truth be told, there are a lot of college students who were participating in these movements. But again, they understood that without the church, their attempts would have been in vain. They would have been a failure. And so you needed to have the optic of the churchgoer marching down the street in church clothes, not pulling permits, basically pushing and poking at the sheriff's department, who are there to provide order, who are there to ensure that that motorists can move along the street without the potentiality of hitting somebody. Like they were there to conduct order. But then if you can spin that in the newspapers and say, look, they're just beating them up because they're black, people will fall for it because these are church folks, right? And kids, they recruited also middle school and high school students. So all of it was a mass community organizing campaign that was effective. Why? Because they were able to use the church as a launching pad. And it's for this reason that many so-called black churches are completely corrupt and nowhere near gospel oriented. And so these were people who were not moving with any degree of principle. They were moving with this kind of satanic, utilitarian tactic is really what they were doing. And so, I mean, what Martin Luther King and all them were doing, if they were alive today, they would be pushing climate change. They would be pushing all the stuff that we hear about in the media. And like, not only that, but again, you look at the activists who were rubbing shoulders with him, some of whom who are alive today, who are stumping for this Marxian agenda. You have Martin Luther King's very own family, his kids who are still alive, who are pushing for it. You had Coretta Scott King, who was pushing for it till the day that she died. What makes you think that Martin Luther King would have woken up, you know what I mean, and became a conservative or became a real Christian? I don't believe it for a second.
And like, there are, I don't know of any King relative that's alive that is not on the left, except for what's her face? Alvita.
But even she, like, Alvita, with all due respect to Alvita, like even she, like, jumps at any opportunity to remind you that he was my uncle and he wanted, everybody to get along. And yes, she advocates for some pro-life stuff, but it's like, but even she conveniently name drops Martin Luther King so as to lend credibility to her efforts. And it's like,
true. I mean, but she's the only one that isn't on the left. She's the only one. That's it.
So I'll just say, Chad, beautifully said. I just wanted to get your take on that, because I think that is one of those things where a person will go, yeah, you know what? Yeah, because it's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine, I guess, MLK and Andrew Young and the boys out with their rainbow flags marching. Maybe that's hard to imagine for some. And so, some will say that that's a valid argument, because a part of what gets blacks so upset is you hear this term a lot, that these other folks have hijacked our movement, or glommed onto our movement, glommed onto our law, right? This law was meant to protect us, but that doesn't ring true. That doesn't hold weight when you had opponents of the civil rights movement at the time who were predicting that this is in fact what would take place. So that doesn't carry much weight, because it's not that this was unforeseen. This is a lot of things. You hear a lot of great conservatives say, great conservatives, people that I like, authors like Christopher Caldwell, wrote a wonderful book titled "The Age of Entitlement." The I forgot the subtitle, but it's about how the 1960s virtually transformed America for the worse. But even men like Christopher Caldwell and great men, even Soul, and a lot of other conservative writers and thinkers will say these were unforeseen consequences, but they were not unforeseen. If you go back and you listen to the contemporary accounts, people were saying this is bad, this is what's happening, this is a communist movement, so on. people knew precisely what was going on. I remember Chad was asked on one of his recent lives, someone said something about JFK. And I forgot what the question was, and Chad responded to the question about, I think it was something about Kennedy either being a communist. It was something about Kennedy, but I know Chad was saying that the Kennedys were warning a king that he had, communists in his circle, and it would be a good idea for him to rid himself of their affiliation. But the Kennedys, even beyond that, a lot of people don't know. It's funny, you hear these liberals talk, about the era of Joe McCarthy and the red baiting and all this stuff. But they love Kennedy. But Kennedy, a lot of people, the Kennedy family and Joe McCarthy were extremely close. A lot of people don't know this. He visited their homes plenty of time. Bobby Kennedy, I think, or maybe the other way around, but I think Bobby Kennedy was the godfather to one of Joe McCarthy's children. That's how close they were. Joe McCarthy even used to date one of the Kennedy sisters. And so they had an extremely close relationship, and a lot of the information, again, that the Kennedys received about the communist workings in the United States, or vice versa, they would exchange information with one another. But again, Joe McCarthy is the villain, but the Kennedys are held up on this pedestal. But they were very, very, very close, of course, because they were both of Irish heritage, and so they were very close. But anyway, you had people that were saying that this was, in fact, a communist movement. But instead, what do you hear now? That these people have hijacked our movement. And now all sorts of people are now being protected. Just to put it out there, you guys, again, can go and look in more detail when you have time. But pretty much what the Bostock versus Clayton County decision did was that it legalized civil rights protection for transgenders. Yes, Gerald Bostock claimed that he was fired from his job when he decided to come out as a woman. And so you all can look into that. And of course, the great Justice Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, and to my surprise, Justice Kavanaugh, were the three dissenting opinions on the Bostock decision. And so now it is officially law, when, of course, the Civil Rights Act had nothing to do with transgenders. But here we are. So for all the bluster that conservative or Republican politicians have, how many of them are going to come out and openly attack the civil rights legislation of 1964? Well, they sure as heck aren't going to do that if they want. They're not going to do that if they want black votes. I mean, you're not running for office. I mean, not to say that it wouldn't work if you were to run for office somewhere, but like Chad said, you have to kind of play the populist game, because if you need black votes in order to win in 2024 as a Republican,
though, I mean,
you're not going to criticize the Civil Rights Act
without black folks.
I know they've been winning for a long time. Yeah, but that just goes to show you the whole trajectory. We losing white folks, and they ain't reproducing either. Okay. So we in trouble. But
But conservatives are having more babies, which is a good thing. So
that's what the study said.
I hope the left keep pushing this. I don't want them to keep pushing abortion, obviously, but the more they push it and the more they kids are gay and trans, they ain't gonna have no kids. So it's gonna be a whole bunch of us conservatives running up and around and been through here. Chad got a whole gang of them already. So
right. Yeah, I want more too. We should probably wrap up here pretty soon.
Yes, we should. What was my last clip I was gonna play? Oh. Here we go.
Why come here? What is your message today?
Coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a black job, sir?
A black job is anybody that has a job. That's what it is. Anybody that has a job.
All right.
And
Mr.
they're taking the employment away from black people. They're coming in, they're invading. It's an invasion of millions of people, probably 15, 16, 17 million people. I have a feeling it's much more than that. And everybody's been seeing what's happened. The black population is affected most by that.
I just love the fact that I'm going to use the phrase again, how Trump just literally dragged his cojones all over that stage and all over, because he went in there. I mean, yes, there was things that I wish he could have said. It was a perfect opportunity for him to say, I'm here, Kamala ain't. So what's the beef? She didn't even answer you. That's how much she think about you. She declined to even come. So, so don't be pressing me all hard like y'all about that life when she didn't even come. You need to be pressing her with her non-elected self. Why don't you go do that? Anyway, but I just love to see it, because I thought it was good for America to, number one, see how rude these Black women were to him unnecessarily. And Trump said, you're late, your equipment don't work. All this mess is broke up and through here. It was great.
Well, Lamar said they weren't rude enough.
But my whole thing with that is, I mean, there is obviously nuance in what he's saying.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, like, what he's saying is politically expedient because it makes Black people feel, because I mean, the sentiment amongst a lot of Black folks is that illegal immigrants are coming over here. Black folks aren't so much, they don't so much care about the jobs that immigrants are getting as much as they care about the resources that immigrants are getting, and the fact that the community center is closed down because they're using the community center to house the kids, and now my kids can't go play basketball. Like that is more or less what they are concerned about. When it comes to the whole, well, hold on. When it comes to the job piece, that is the most interesting to me, because Blacks should be going after these jobs, but they're not, because they think they're too good for them. The fact is, a lot of these immigrants who are coming over here, they are getting any job they can get because they see it as a step in the direction they wish to go. I wish Blacks had that same attitude, but they don't, many of them. And so it's not so much that the immigrants are stealing the jobs. These jobs are readily available. I can't tell you here in Texas how many now hiring signs I see. And not just for a minimum wage job, but for actual jobs where they don't have a ceiling. You can work your way up. You can be promoted. You can, all the things. And so Blacks aren't going after these jobs. I'm a plumber. You'll be embarrassed. Well, not embarrassed, but you'll be shocked to know the percentage of Black plumbers in the state of Texas. And it's not only true in my state, it's true across the country. Electricians, auto mechanics, the whole nine. A lot of Blacks are just interested in jobs like, becoming a barber, something like that. But I'm not knocking that. I'm not knocking that, Quisha. There's no shade here. But what I'm saying is these jobs of usefulness and productivity to society, unfortunately, a lot of Black folks aren't taking advantage of these. I went to Baltimore 2 years ago. I can't tell you how many boarded up brownstones I've seen when I were there. And then able-bodied Black men standing on the corner doing absolutely nothing, doing all of nothing, right? And there's so much opportunity there, but they're not seizing the opportunities. I asked a group of young Black men, because I was doing some man-on-the-street interviews with them, and they were complaining about their grievances. And one of the things that they said is West Baltimore is a food desert. We got to go all the way, wherever to get access to food. And when you go to Walgreens, everything is locked up. We got to ask the associate to open the stuff up so we can get some bread. And they were saying this as if it was
somebody else's fault.
Yeah, as if it was somebody else's fault and that they were being oppressed. When the reality is, I looked into it. There's grants available to start a grocery store. Nobody's willing to do it. No one is willing to take the opportunity. An Indian fella comes here and takes advantage of the opportunities and start his little convenience store in these Black hoods. I don't knock it.
To be abused on top of that.
Right,
too.
Exactly.
By
so the fact is, these Black jobs are not being taken or seized upon by Black folks. And so the immigrants come along and they get the jobs. And so, yes, technically Trump is right in saying that they're taking Black jobs. But the fact is, because a lot of Blacks don't really have a lot going for themselves, while at the same time having this sense of entitlement, which is a very poor mixture. Imagine that, not having any motivation, but at the same time feeling entitled, like you're owed something. This is why they're afraid of Project 2025, because the implementation of Project 2025 means all of those benefits and everything that you want gets cut off. At least that's their perception, even though that's not entirely true. But that's the fear tactic that they believe. You are taking away the things that I'm entitled to, that I don't have to work for. Now I have to go to work. Well, here along comes Trump and say, well, have at these jobs, these black jobs. Well, I'm not interested in the black jobs. I want to be entitled to the resources that the taxpayer is made to pay for. There's a lot of nuance in this, and Quisha, that's simply what I'm addressing here. Is the nuance of it all.
True. Yeah. In some instances, like it is the jobs that maybe not the parents don't necessarily want, but their kids would have. Like I remember, I think it was out there.
I'm a business owner here in Texas, Quisha. They're not interested in it. I can tell you, they're not interested in. The kids are not interested in the jobs.
Well, I was
just not interested in the jobs.
I think it was in California where I remember a black guy, and it was a group of black people there, and they were talking about how this wasn't even recent, but they were talking about how all these illegals were coming over there, and he was like, my daughter cannot get a job at McDonald's. And he was pissed off. He was like, because she's got to speak Spanish, and all they want to hire is Spanish. And I know I used to live in Miami. I can tell you that is and a lot of black folks just left. They just left the area because it just became so taken over by different.
But I don't feel bad for them though, because they allowed it to get to that point. It's not the government's fault. I mean, the government did have a hand in it because they are very lax and aloof when it comes to the border. So yes, to that extent, they have a hand in it. But at the same time, if blacks were already taking these jobs and doing a good job at the jobs, it would have never got to the point that it's gotten to. So I think that blacks are equally to blame. Yes, the government is to blame, but blacks, I think, are equal to blame, if not more so. I don't feel bad for them, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that. I think it's living in Miami showed me a lot. Like it is so inundated with non-English speaking people. And so like, McDonald's, let's just say McDonald's, they are franchises, many of them. So if you have, let's say you have a Hispanic person that owns a bunch of McDonald's, and they're putting on all of their people, the kid that just wants to get a job, up the street, and they don't speak Spanish, and we live in America, it's a lot of different
Quisha,
things.
if I'm not mistaken, didn't McDonald's launch this kind of job recruitment campaign in the 80s and the early 90s, trying to get blacks to come to work, promising them
blacks to own McDonald's,
right? Promising them an avenue to eventually get into management and ultimately own. Like and how many blacks actually seized that opportunity? Blacks made fun of that.
Well, some black people did, but I think it's a lot. I think there are a substantial amount of, most black people are not poor. They might be not as wealthy as a two-family. Let's just go with white folks, because we're always being compared to white folks. But most black people are not poor. They're not poor. It's the one adult in the household is typically the thing that puts black.
So where does all this struggling rhetoric come from?
Well,
they always point at somebody else. Even with the interview that I did with Roland Martin, I'm like, Roland, you made it. Why are you not telling all the other black folks how to make it? Since black people are so broke down and can't do nothing, why? Oh, well, it's not him. This is what they said. It's not me. I'm looking out for my neighbor. He said that on Patrick Bet-David's show too. It's always, it's not them. I saw a black lady She went to Harvard and graduated. Her daddy went to Harvard and graduated. And I think her great granddaddy went to Harvard and graduated. And this lady was on Jesse Lee Peterson's show talking about how Black people were oppressed.
Yeah, because they give them
always somebody else. You know, they don't have to be oppressed themselves. They just all the other Black folks are oppressed.
Yeah.
Here go, but you know what? When it comes to immigration, you know, they've done countless studies, and the problem is that Black people can't compete because of Black culture. They can't compete with a demographic of people that are coming to work. Black folks, they're not. These people aren't coming here for some reparations pyramid scheme. They're not coming here to feel good about their ethnicity or their race. They're coming to work and get money. Black folks can't compete, and so the problem is that when immigrants come over here, there's a clash of culture. Immigrants are going to be there on time. They'll ride their bike to work. They'll catch the bus to work. They'll all stay in the same house, 15 of them in the same house. Like, they'll be inconvenienced in America to come up, and Black folks won't. And so the problem is that when there is immigration, these folks coming over here, most people come from a culture where they have to work. There's no social program over there where they're getting food stamps. They got to work over there. So when they come over here, naturally, they were doing back-breaking labor for pennies, and they come over here and make a decent living. And so what it really exposes is that Black folks really can't compete on a global scale. And so when it comes to globalization, this is why they're saying, that's why I predicted Black folks going back into slavery, because you can't compete with the rest of the world when you're already conditioned to believe you deserve handouts. And so I've talked to countless business owners that are Black-owned business owners, and they say their worst person to hire is a Black person. I went on a campaign in 2019. I was going to all these Black businesses and asking them, what about Black employment? They all say the same thing. So even in Los Angeles, in the South Central area, over there by off of Crenshaw, there was a Black group, and they were going around. They were literally strong arming the businesses and telling you have to hire some Black people, because it was all Hispanic, whether it was Burger King, McDonald's, or the wing shop. It was all Hispanic ran. So they was like, y'all have to hire Black people. But guess what? The people said, okay. They hired Black people. So I'm like, Black folks, even when they push the issue, they still got their demands met to even work at these places around there. But at the end of the day, Quisha, it's a culture that Black culture doesn't say be productive, be industrious, pave your own path. It just doesn't. And so the problem is,
no, I agree with that. I'm just saying, I'm not saying that there isn't severe issues with Black people not being productive, or that the culture isn't jacked up and all these things. I'm just saying that regardless, they're still like, if the culture writ large has we've made conveniences for in America that we like to enjoy, that we don't have to go out and do, we have machines to do certain things. We don't have to do certain. And so, yes, we enjoy our little creature comforts and all that kind of stuff. If somebody who's not supposed to be here comes over and they're going to, manually do this stuff, and then, yes, they'll be on time, all a great service and all the things. Yeah, I agree, understand. But it's still, it's not, I should not have to compete with a whole other culture, a whole nother, somebody who's not even supposed to be here because of the culture that America has made. Like,
the Black folks did it though. Like, Black folks shot themselves in the foot.
They are competing, I guess, because they made themselves that way. The issue isn't that they shouldn't be competing with illegal aliens for these low-skilled jobs. What they shouldn't be competing with illegal aliens for is government benefits, and that's what they're really upset with, is the fact that they have to now compete with them for government benefits. The reality is that blacks are now in the position, or they should be, but they're not in the position where they should be going after more high skilled jobs. And this is what it means to live in a, I mean, you know, you had great free market economists like Milton Friedman who sort of agreed with this idea of a more free trade that transcended national borders, with the exception that we had to massively decrease, if not outright eliminate, the federal welfare system. We had to get rid of the welfare state. You cannot have open borders in a massive welfare state, right? It's the Cloward and Piven. You're going to disrupt and destroy the entire system. What these core economic zones that we refer to as first world countries, they produce higher paying jobs, of course, to meet the demand of a growing consumer base whose standard of living has tremendously increased due to their participation in the market, and of course the vitality that the market gains by way of their labor participation. So it's just one big symbiotic mechanism, if you will, that you know, again, allows for the living standards of the people to rise. The more and more they earn more because jobs pay more and such and so forth. And then the lower tiers of the economic rung, blacks especially, man, are there's no excuse. There is no excuse why you should still be down here. That is your own fault. But I'm going to just come out and say the quiet part out loud. And this goes back to how Karl Marx himself defined what, in fact, is a class. Marx and Engels would state that what operationally defines a class is a group of individuals who have an exclusive hatred or animus towards another group. And so if you're not a class, if you are not part of a group that hates another, so there has to be antagonism. This is part of the whole dialectical principle inherent in the Marxian doctrine. And so blacks as a class are defined as such because they have universal and exclusive and wholesale hatred in many instances towards whites. This is why if you speak out against that particular attitude, then you're not, you know, you're considered this sort of outlier. You're some sort of, again, sellout, you're a bootlicker, you're Uncle Tom, and so on and so forth, because you don't hate as they hate. This is what Marx would say. And I think this has a lot to do why many blacks won't get rid of the bad elements within the so-called black race or the so-called black community, because they still consider the lowest common denominator amongst them to be a part of the same class. How best, and G. Edward Griffin talked about this. This is why he considered violence, I mean, just your average run-of-the-mill street violence, G. Edward Griffin defined it as terrorism. And why did G. Edward Griffin define it as terrorism? Because he says that it makes it to where a society cannot function in a healthy manner, because people don't want to get up off their behinds and simply participate in the market, to participate in life, because simply going about the business of life is too hazardous a proposition, because you could literally lose your life. And so what do I mean when I say that I'm going to say the quiet part out loud? Again, because that's, again, what terrorism does. It just destroys a society's ability to function. This is political violence. This is your common run-of-the-mill street violence. It's somewhat political in nature. And why do I say, and my point in bringing all of this up is to say that first things first, people need to get rid of that element. For all of this talk, you have so many people who are not criminals, who get up, who are productive, even if they traffic in stupid ideas, like a lot of the people in the chat and things of that nature tonight. These people are probably productive. They probably don't break laws. These are probably tax-paying, law-abiding citizens who, with their rhetoric and the ideology that they carry around, run cover for these individuals. They give them this kind of intellectual imprimatur for their dysfunction. And as a result, you have people who do not want to take these opportunities to invest in these areas because it's too dangerous a proposition for many of people, because quite frankly, these are areas that people just don't want to be in. If you want to get a society to function, if you want to get an economy to function, you have to. I don't care. It's not about we need to get to the root causes of this, or we need to get the root cause of that. I don't care about any of that. I'm not in the business of that, because there is no way that I can legislate that. There's no way that I can solve that issue, because I am just incapable of doing it, because my abilities and faculties as a human being is limited. So I can only do what it is that I know how to do. All of these, the criminals from the it needs to be cleared out wholesale. They need to be locked up in an iron cement cell, and they must be prevented from leaving for a prolonged period of time. For all of this talk, this is another thing you're going to hear about: criminal justice reform. Be prepared to hear about that in this September debate coming up, and watch how Trump is probably going to talk about how he supports criminal justice reform. And I put out the First Step Back, and I did this and I did that. I myself, I am for criminal justice reform as well, because I don't think our criminal justice system is harsh enough. And that's the first thing. If you want to clear the way so that the black folks who are actually industrious, the black folks that are actually moral and decent, if you want to give them a safe space, I like this word on the left, right? If you want to give them a safe space to improve the community, then remove the element that they're afraid of. Remove it. But at the same time, those very same people who are who do fit the criteria, they have to be willing to let go of those individuals, because you don't owe them anything. You don't have to save them. They're not one of you. They're not a part of you. They're not like you. Cut them off. Let them go and ruin their own lives, and you take care of your business. But again, too many productive black folk believe in the lies of the left, and they traffic in their propaganda, and they make, in turn, in many instances, make their lives worse. And what do as a result? They go and blame racism, or go and blame the white man.
They internalize the so-called grievances of the inner city black.
That's right. Get rid of the bad element. We are so afraid to lock up criminals. But then the first thing when Donald Trump says, well, he is for immunity, federal immunity for all police officers, whatever he said, or whenever he supposedly has said it, the president does not have the authority to suspend federal law, first and foremost. But what I find so striking is that when Donald Trump allegedly makes a statement like that, people have conjured up these images in their minds that police officers are now going to just go about the streets maiming and slaughtering people in mass. That's not going to happen. But what is in fact happening are actual criminals that are making your environment and making your communities unlivable. And when it comes to them, mum's the word. But soon as Donald Trump says some off-kilter comment about something that he doesn't even have the authority to do, then all of a sudden I got personal friends of mine sending me messages asking me questions about what's up with your boy? How your boy say this? How your boy had a nerve to do that? But yet and still you have an entire federal government apparatus that has completely nullified federal law by rendering our southern border completely superficial. And you got people just waltzing in, the so-called border czar, the tough on crime prosecutor. But Lord, Donald Trump wants to give police officers federal immunity. How stupid is that? Says more about
also
you.
say he's a dictator, even though.
Exactly. Anyway.
I'm late already, and I'm only getting away with it because he went to bed early.
All right.
No, I know I don't have to.
Y'all ain't checking up, are y'all?
Yo, the chat is keeping me on. They like, Quisha, it is almost 11 o'clock. Thank you guys. Thank y'all for loving me and caring about my future husband and our relationship. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Chad, put it up on the screen and remind me too. So let's get to these super chats, and can we just read through them quickly?
Yeah, I'm just gonna read through them.
Okay. Because really, he definitely is on our behinds too.
Okay, hold on. Okay, from Ty, I showed my mother the Roland Martin and King Randall interview, and she performed an Olympic gold medal in middle gymnastics to stay on Martin's side. Time to stop listening to boomers. I think they're gone. Thank you, Ty. Most of them are.
Yeah, Chad, I hate them boomers.
Shantae, I truly appreciate this show, you guys. I thought I knew a lot, but thankfully you all keep me in the know. Thank you, or knowing, or no. Thank you so much, Shantae. Michelle Macon, some people will still perish because they reject knowledge. Y'all, I so appreciate your research and your bringing to us. God bless you all. Thank you so much. Michelle, Dayon, thanks again for including my music in the show. You're welcome. Starve Baby, how to think and what to think are the same thing. Control of your thoughts. Naj Amor, great show, you guys. Thank you for a super sticker.
Thank you.
Just a Girl, please say a prayer to the Lord for our dear Angel Wings, for him to make a way to homeschool her son. Thank you. Yes, we will pray for Angel Wings.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
It was never our movement. It was always theirs.
What that mean?
Guess him in civil rights movement, I'm thinking.
Yeah. It was in response to something you said earlier, Chuck. They were just basically agreeing with you.
Oh, okay.
Idris Singleton gifted Chad 5 memberships. Thank you, Idris. That's it.
Thank you. All right, y'all. We're gonna play the montage again for those who missed it. Love y'all. Hope y'all enjoyed the show. Do come back next Sunday and catch these lovely folks on the panel throughout the week on their individual lives. Be blessed.
Bye-bye.
You like, hey, I need backup.
That's right.
You know it's going to be 50, 60, 70 of them.
That's going to show
with
up.
They gray hair.
That's exactly
and the
right.
walkers, and they like, Justin, baby, we here.
We hear what you need us to do.
We need all of you to stay active and engaged in order to defeat Donald Trump and elect Vice President Harris. Before we get into the program, I wanted to make a quick pitch for the Vice President's merch store, store.kamalaharris.com, where exclusively for all of you, we are announcing 20% off if you use the discount code ORGANIZE.
Doesn't that make you gay?
We are focused on rebuilding our winning coalition of voters, and we are not taking any votes for granted. In particular, there are several key constituencies in the Democratic base with whom Vice President Harris has well-documented support. Black voters, Latino voters, AA and HPI voters, women, and young voters. We know that each of these core voter groups care about issues like reproductive rights, upholding the rule of law, and Donald Trump's criminal convictions. And these issues are exactly where Vice President Kamala Harris has been leading the charge for her entire career. They are also undecided voters who we are ready to persuade. And these voters are disproportionately Black, Latino, and under the age of 30. They are more likely to have supported the Biden-Harris ticket in 2020, and they are 2 times more likely to be Democrats than Republicans. So it's this campaign's job to win these voters, and we know that we can.
I don't have to tell folks in Atlanta that generations of Americans before us led the fight for freedom. And now the baton is in our hands.
Okay, so first let me say I'm so happy to see a woman brought up for president, and I'm grateful for that. However, they get the black vote and nothing changes. And when I say nothing, I mean our education system. Our children are suffering in New York City public schools, and I understand that they allow the migrants to come in, but they come in and they just overwhelm them with services, and they forget about the people that are already here. So is something going to change because Kamala's running instead of Biden? Like, help me out. We're confused here.
Well, those are all valid questions. A lot of those things you named are local issues, though.
Yeah.
Like that stuff you should be going to your local government with.
Yeah.
I don't think America's ready. I don't think America's ready for a female president. You know what? I'm a black man, and I absolutely do not want another Democratic president in there. I think we should give the Republicans another try. There's a lot of agendas that the Democratic Party has kind of put into place that I don't support. I think they're destroying the black man. They're destroying the black family.
Not ready. You just get ready. Like, what you talking about? She know what she up against. Like, you just get ready. I don't understand. Like, she not ready. How y'all gonna tell somebody not ready?
And that's another good point just brought up. Donald Trump had no political experience whatsoever.
Not one.
None.
Nothing at all.
So this woman has been a senator, attorney general, a vice president. She seemed ready to me.
You all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
Being an HBCU alum and D9 member, we've already seen that push and that call for all of us to rally behind her. I do feel like the symbolism of the moment does urge us a little bit more, even without hearing the platform, to be behind it.
The fact that she graduated from an HBCU, the fact that she was a prosecutor, the fact that she's not going to back down, the fact that she's not scared, the fact that she looks like all of us out there to me.
Well, I think the prosecutor thing plays well for her right now. You know, when she ran for president in 2020, that was something that people, used against her. But I mean, when you going up against somebody who's got all the criminal charges that Donald Trump has, I don't think that there's a better person to prosecute the case against Trump than, a former prosecutor, like the vice president.
If y'all don't know me, I go by the name of Quavo. Born and raised in the north side of Atlanta, home of the Migos. So it's only right in the birthplace of the culture to launch the first African-American woman to run for president. Yeah, we changing the culture again. So if you never voted before, make sure you get out and vote right now, because it's the real one.
Donald Trump has been talking a big game about securing our border, but he does not walk the walk. Or as my friend Quavo would say, he does not walk it like he talks it.
Kamala has too much class. She's not going to stoop to his level, and his level is pretty low. I do think that he may or may not show up for a debate. She'll wipe the floor up with him, and that's why he doesn't want to come.
Donald, as the saying goes, if you've got something to say, across our nation, we are witnessing a full-on assault on hard-fought, hard-won freedoms and rights. Freedom to vote, freedom to be safe from gun violence, freedom to live without fear of bigotry and hate, freedom to love who you love openly and with pride, freedom to learn and acknowledge our true and full history, freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body. Ours is a fight for the future and for freedom.
She's a woman and she can speak directly to the issues that are up against us in this whole race.
On day one, I will take on price gouging and bring down costs. We will take on landlords and cap unfair rent increases. We will take on Big Pharma to cap prescription drug costs for all Americans.
There was a moment last night on the White Women Call that was quite interesting. One of them said, Black women know how to organize and mobilize, so we should let them lead. They're 6% of the population and have a more dramatic effect than we do, and we're 47%.
Lord have mercy. Did she tell the truth? And in this moment, we all need to be following this black woman to the White House. And it's not without, and I know for white folk, y'all got to put something at risk. Black people put things at risk all the time.
Donald Trump has a different plan in mind, one that would raise prices on middle-class families. Just look at his Project 2025 agenda. I take it you've seen it.
Far-right manifesto Project 2025 is a 1,000-page manifesto that outlines a radical agenda to increase the powers of the executive branch.
Anybody that gets a government check needs to be extremely concerned about what's going on here.
Whether it is housing or transportation or food or jobs or civil rights, all of these things will be radically changed, radically weakened, that will have impacts inside of your life.
Freedoms are being taken away from us. Wake up, do the research, look up 2025 agenda.
Project 2025 is a plan to weaken the middle class.
Diminish rights for LGBTQ individuals, immigrants, women, people of color, dismantling key government agencies.
It is a 1,000-page bucket list of extremist policies that would uproot every government agency and disrupt the lives of every person who calls this country home.
This is a direct aim at Black people. They want to raise the retirement age.
And I didn't even touch upon proposals for housing, climate change, worker protections, and more.
The fuck is the black jobs?
See, he has that little Project 2025. I think I know what black jobs he's talking about. He wants a certain type of black jobs to come back. He's trying to get us back to slavery.
The Department of Education would be eliminated, cutting students off from civil rights protections and ending essential Title I funding for K through 12 schools.
They want to end free lunch. They want to end free lunch.
The federal government is one of the largest employers of people of color. So they're going to move many of these people out and bring in their own folks.
They want to ban Black and Latino studies from all public universities.
Project 25 not only calls for national book bans in schools, but also creates a list of banned words for the federal government that would be deleted from, quote, every federal rule, agency regulation, contract, grant, and piece of legislation that exists. Here are just a few of the words on the list: diversity, gender, reproductive health, and of course, conservatives want to ban the word abortion. Project 2025 would destroy the federal government as we know it.
But I want to tell you about God's Project 25. God's Project 25 is Psalm 25. In you, Lord my God, I put my trust. I trust in you. Don't let me be put to shame. Let my enemies have no triumph over me. Let shame come on all of those who are treacherous towards your children.
A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals. You have told 4 congresswomen of color to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. Why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
Give me a
definition then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition of
Sir,
that.
I'm asking you a question,
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct
define
question.
it. Define it for me, if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say, no, I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
Why come here? What is your message today?
Coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a black job, sir?
A black job is anybody that has a job. That's what it is. Anybody that has a job.
All right.
And they're taking the employment away from black people. They're coming in, they're invading. It's an invasion of millions of people, probably 15, 16, 17 million people. I have a feeling it's much more than that. And everybody's been seeing what's happened. The black population is affected most by that.
So Sadia Massey, someone from Illinois, an unarmed black woman, was shot the other day in her home by a deputy sheriff. The deputy has since been charged with murder. You've said police would get immunity from prosecution if you win.
But I'm saying if I felt, or if a group of people would feel that somebody was being unfairly prosecuted because the person did a good job maybe with crime or made a mistake, an innocent mistake. There's a big difference between being a bad person and making an innocent mistake. But if somebody made an innocent mistake, I would want to help that person.
What would those exceptions be? What would determine
You
an
go
innocent
after
mistake?
somebody and it's a very close call and it's very dangerous. And they have, the policeman's life is a very difficult thing because sometimes you have less than a second to make a, life and death decision. And sometimes very bad decisions are made. They're not made from an evil standpoint, but they're made from the standpoint of they made a mistake.
I find it interesting because you do talk about reining in prosecutors, especially when it comes to prosecutors that are prosecuting you. Why doesn't that skepticism apply to law enforcement?
Well, I've been prosecuted because I'm a political opponent of two people that have weaponized our justice system. This is an attack on a political opponent.
I'm going to get my J.D. Vance question in. He, has a lot of opinions about childless women like myself or divorced people like yourself. Do you think the Republican Party is getting a little bit too judgy about people's lives when you think about abortion or when you think about what J.D. Vance is saying?
I don't think, I think that the Democrat Party is really the one that has the problem. I think they're radical on abortion because they're allowing abortion in the 9th month. They're allowing the death of a baby after the baby is born. And I think the Republican Party is actually much less. I think I've made them much less radical, perhaps.
What do you do on day one if you win? What's your first thing?
I do two things, because I can do a lot of things simultaneously. I close the border. We don't want people coming. We want people to come in, Harris, but they have to be vetted. They have to be checked. They have to come in legally. I want people to come into our country, but they have to be vetted. They have to be checked. So when you say, what do? That, and I drill, baby, drill. I bring energy way down. I bring interest rates down. I bring inflation way down so that people can go to a restaurant and afford it. Because right now, people can't buy food. Your grocery bills are up 40, 50, 60%, right? She's agreeing to me. Oh, she's agreeing. Thank you. I like you very much. But it's true. Your grocery bills are up. And then they're mandating that you buy an all-electric car. Elon Musk endorsed me, and he's a friend of mine. He's a good guy. He's a smart guy. But I'm against everybody having an electric car, okay? I'm very much against that. You have to be able to, if you want a hybrid or if you want a gasoline-propelled car. But, we have more liquid gold, gasoline, oil, under our feet than any other country. More than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia, more than any other country. I want to use it. I want to use what we have. I want to bring down prices, bring down costs, and I also have to stop the invasion. And remember, they're taking your jobs. These people coming in are taking your jobs.
Project 2020.